Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 690. And joining me is my good friend, Nathan. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be back. We had the holidays. I had a little bit of a sickness there, kind of lost my voice and lost the air to my lungs. But we're on the up and we're excited to be back.
He's back from playing hooky, guys. He says he was sick.
Oh my
I
God.
watched that Oregon playoff game and I was like, of course Nathan's going to call it sick. Like, sick. Sure. More like depressed and sad.
Depressed and sad certainly didn't help the sickness. But for those of you that don't know what viral induced asthma is, when you get sick, you get asthma essentially, or your asthmatic symptoms flare up. I haven't had a flare up like this since high school. I'm in there like wheezing like SpongeBob when he needs water. Yeah, it was brutal. So, went to urgent care, got a prescription, got some inhalers to help kick it. But it was, I was talking like this every single time I had to breathe. So if I was on the show, I would not have been able to deliver for you guys. I wish I could have been there live reacting in the moment to Oregon for you all. I wanted to take that one on the chin for you guys, but I'm back now. We're ready to rock.
This is the weirdest thing to respond to this with, but I'm dating an ER nurse, and I'm so glad you went to the urgent care. Like, you went to the right place. That you don't know how many people go to the ER when it's really not an emergency. Like, they just need to go to the urgent care instead. And it's like, I don't know if you were aware you did good there, but as a person dating an ER nurse, way to go to the right spot, the right location.
Well, here's the deal is I kind of felt like that's what it was. And also I didn't even go to urgent care. I did like one of those online e-doctors.
Like a teledoctor.
Yeah, a teledoctor.
Perfect.
And he listened to me for like 5-10 minutes. Like, yeah, I'll get you a prescription. Picked it up with like an hour. It was great. Sometimes the medical system can fail you. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it works out in your favor. And I'm thankful that it was as simple as it needed to be, because you can ask Liz, man, I could not breathe. It was bad.
Dude, I have a real, like, a big boy job now. And so I have my own insurance. It's pretty awesome. And I don't know if people know this, but the years of doing SOS, I was on my mom's insurance because I was under 26. And I was like, well, I can't afford as a small business, like, pay for my own insurance. So having my own insurance is kind of crazy. And I had a thing recently where I was like, I need to go to therapy and like fix some stuff. Therapy's $10 with therapy. I put it off for years thinking it'd be really expensive. It's a $10 copay. I'm like, oh, therapy is so affordable if you've got the help you want. I saw a video on YouTube Reels the other day. I deleted all social media, but I still watch YouTube Reels. So I watch Instagram and TikTok Reels like 2 months later, basically. But it's this family like running and jumping and doing a bunch of flips in the desert. And the top comment was like, the way they're flipping, they've got great healthcare coverage.
Great healthcare coverage.
Man, it's so funny. I don't know. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Do not miss out on the last couple weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the NFL playoffs. You can turn something like $5 into $500, maybe even win up to 1,000 times your money. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's start. First of all, actually, I think I'd like to talk about Lions Vikings. We'll get to that. I think congratulations are in order because you guys are a pretty competitive household. You and your fiance both played in college. Even like during COVID, by the way, you guys were doing like the apartment games. I remember it was like super fun. But you have not one, but two fantasy football champions in your house.
Yes.
And I don't know a single couple in my life other than you guys that's pulled that off. That's impressive, man. Well done.
Thank you. It was the perfect storm this year. She joined her work league and she won it outright. Very first year doing fantasy football. Did I help out a little bit? Yeah, totally. But she drafted Jamar Chase, obviously massive. Had Dak Prescott early in the year. Like, she put together a really solid foundation while drafting on an airplane because she was going on a work trip. So
Jeez.
crazy. And then I won a pretty competitive league with some old football teammates from Portland State University. So feels good. That was my first fantasy championship. Just man, it feels
So
good.
you beat other football people basically.
Yes. And
That's not nothing.
I'm not going to, tout the competitiveness of the league, but the buy-in is on the much more expensive side for fantasy football. So the prize pot was nice, and like I didn't just give you guys fantasy football advice like starting the year and we're talking about all these teams. Like I really meant it when I was talking about guys who I would pick. So Josh Jacobs, that was my guy. I told you guys to be patient with him. Finally started getting the volume, getting the touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr. was fantastic. Brock Bowers, I think, was a hit for most people. Man, it worked out. It was a great year.
Yeah, I think, I referenced it a minute ago. I had a kind of moment. I had to go to therapy. When all that went down in my life, I was like, well, I don't care about fantasy football at all. I was like, I just had so much on my plate, and I haven't even looked at my team. I don't know how my team did. I know I hung out with my friend Tommy to watch the Vikings Lions game, which last episode I referenced a friend / customer who we put in a different filter box and I liked. That's Tommy. So Tommy and I watched the Lions Vikings game yesterday, and he's like, "Dude, I was really embarrassed because you played me in fantasy, and 3 of your players weren't even on your you had 3 guys out not playing because you didn't adjust your roster and you still beat me." And I was like, damn, dude, that sucks. But I just checked out of fantasy like 2 months ago, and I feel bad. But I at some point you got to realize like your own life takes precedent over like made up football stuff. And so, but to the people who were in the fantasy football league this year, that's awesome. We might do an SOS next year, but I'd pass that off to Logan, who we've talked about, to like run the league basically. But I like the idea of fantasy again. I don't think I'm a fantasy football person. I'm all over the place. I got a bunch of stuff going on, and I just would forget every week to set my lineup, and then eventually I was like, I'm checked out. I don't care anymore. Like,
Yeah, that's one of the things. You got to have a great league mates. That's part of it. Sometimes just things are hard. You miss the waiver wire. You miss the fab. You miss swapping out a few guys here and there. Just life gets busy.
Yeah, and I mean, not to make this too long, but like I have a job that calls me like all the time, and I don't need another thing in my life. And then I bit off more than I could chew. I made 4 SOS leagues. That was a mistake. I should have been in one and passed it off to someone else for the other couple. And I just
4
did.
was a lot.
1 was a lot. 4 was like no effing way I could do this every week. Let's talk about the game that happened on Sunday Night Football last night. The Vikings Lions. I had high hopes for this game. I thought this was going to be game of the week. The first time these two teams played, the Lions barely beat the Vikings 31-29. I even told people, hey, if there's only one game you watch this weekend, there's no college games, this is the game you watch, thinking it was going to be great. And the Lions at home in Detroit beat the Vikings 31-9. There's a lot to say about this game, but let's just start with you. Like, what'd you make of last night's game? And were you as disappointed as I was? Because I just thought we were going to have a game. Me and Tommy were talking about it, sitting at the bar, like, hey, this game is going to go down to the wire. And hopefully, I don't really care who wins, but I want it to be the final minute and the game is on the line and in question. And we just did not get that at all.
Yeah, this game to me was a lot closer than the scoreboard reflected. The second half, I think things really got away from Minnesota. But if we go back to that first half, 3, I think almost 4 possessions in a row where they're down in the red zone and they come away with only 6 points. And that is the entire and complete difference in the game. It reminds me a little bit of the game San Francisco against the Ravens last year, where San Francisco was driving down and then they'd have a turnover, right? And in those early stages of the game, when you can't get that exclamation point on your drives, it can be really exhausting for your offense, for your play caller. The frustration sets in just on the offensive players in general. And then all of a sudden, now you're not clicking and things just kind of get away from you. And so again, the second half was the second half. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously got hot. The Lions start to settle in and build their confidence, knowing that they're getting these big red zone stops. And to me, that was the difference in the game. But I don't look at Minnesota any differently. I don't look at Darnold any differently. It was just a less than polished start to the game. And I think mostly on Sam Darnold in terms of putting the ball where it needed to be. And then things just kind of fell apart from there. I'm not going to read into this game. They were on like a 7-8 game winning streak. They were a hot team. they're going to cool off at some point. Detroit's a good team. They're at home. It was a big game. Like sometimes the ball just doesn't roll your way.
Yeah, can I give a long-winded thought about Sam Darnold last night?
I'm buckled in.
Sam Darnold was 18 for 41, had 166 yards. He didn't look calm. Like there were so many moments you see Sam, and look, he's yelling because the crowd is really loud, but yelling is different than yelling with really hyped up body language. And there were a bunch of throws where he just airmailed, and he had to throw it on the seam, had to throw it in the end zone. He had multiple overthrows. Sam Darnold came out of the game really, really amped up. I think emotionally heightened. And I had to learn in my career, like I couldn't be the yelling, screaming Tom Brady guy. I had to be the zen, like listen to classical music in the locker room, really chill guy. And when I was chill and poised, I was locked in. Here's the long-winded part of this. I think it really matters. When you practice something, you get better at it. So as an installer in HVAC, I've said this many times, like I would have situations where early in my career, I'm like, I don't know how to solve this. And I panic and freak out. And by the end of my time installing, I knew what I was doing really, really well. And when I would run into a problem, I go, oh, I've done this 100 times. I know how to solve this. No problem. And when you look at quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech in college, and Josh Allen went to Wyoming in college. They didn't go to Alabama. They weren't winning games, 46-6. They weren't dominating, going 14-1 every year. They had to learn how to win in really close games. And that's reflected in their NFL careers today. All through college, they had to learn how to win close games and battle it out. And Sam Darnold hasn't played in a big, meaningful football game since Penn State USC in the Rose Bowl, 5-6 years ago, something like that. It's been a long time. Yeah, when's the last time Sam Darnold played? He looked like a guy who didn't know how to handle a really, really big game. And I don't hate the guy for that. I think this is a really important step in the development of Sam Darnold becoming a franchise quarterback. I think he's a guy in Minnesota. I actually really want to see Minnesota rematch against Detroit. And the biggest thing, I just want Sam Darnold. What I wish Kevin O'Connell, I don't think we saw this moment, and I don't think it happened. You go up to Sam and say, look, man, relax. You're my guy. I love you. You're too amped up. You got to lower the heart rate. You got to calm down. I know how talented you are. I know you hit that seam ball all day. I know you throw that fade for a touchdown to Justin Jefferson all day. You're just too heightened emotionally. Take a deep breath, calm your heart rate down, and lock in. That's all he needed. That little adjustment would have, I think, made a world of difference for Sam Darnold. But he's out of practice playing in big games. He hasn't played in a game that meaningful in a long time. He looked overstimulated, basically. And I just think he needed that little piece of advice. And if he does that adjustment next time they play this game, again, the round one was 31-29. It's not like Minnesota and Detroit are this massive gap talent-wise. Now, that being said, I thought the Lions defense played great, yada, yada. But I just think Sam Darnold's emotional heightened state played a huge role in why they lost. And I don't knock him for it. I explain it by saying, look, he hasn't played in a game that meaningful since his final year in college.
Totally. And I think he made the classic mistake of wanting it too much. Right. The last matchup didn't go their way, and it was kind of that close game where, the teams were going back and forth, and the ball didn't go their way. And then in this game, like, all right, now we've really got it right. And you just try and you try and you try, and you're hitting a brick wall with your fist, and it can just lead to more and more mistakes. And that's why 18-41 sounds so bad.
Yeah. I mean, he was missing throws, man. And it was just, there were overthrows. There were throws that are open. He made the right read, the right everything. And then physically, the ball didn't go to the right spot because he's overthrowing it. Ball was high. Ball was too far. It happened many, many times. He had a miss to Jordan Addison deep where he threw a post over the top, and Jordan Addison cuts across the field and had to side adjust last minute. It wasn't quite there. And then on top of that, I thought Sam Darnold got hit a bunch. He only got sacked twice on the day, which is kind of remarkable. Dude was getting hit basically every throw, beating blitzes often, getting the ball out as he's hit. And I just thought that it wasn't Sam Darnold's best game, obviously, but you can explain it. I don't really know what social media is saying. I don't have even social media on my phone. I imagine people are trashing Sam Darnold. Oh, we finally saw the Sam Darnold the Jets had. I imagine that narrative's happening today. And I'm not here for it. I think Sam's proven what he can do all year long. I'm not going to hold one game against him. I'm going to explain it and say, look, let's give him a shot to do better next time he plays in a playoff game. Because that's basically what it was last night. And I think with that little adjustment to how he handles it emotionally, there's going to be a huge difference.
I mean, yeah, they finished the season 14-3 because he was dealing. And guess who was my starting fantasy quarterback? It was Sam Darnold all year.
And you won your league.
And I know that, fantasy doesn't line up 1-to-1 to the results in the NFL, but he was slinging all year long. And again, he wanted a little bit too much, trying a little bit too hard. And I think, like you said, once he settles in into those bigger moments and has a little bit more experience to draw on at the NFL level, that's great. And I also want to credit the Lions defense here. Once they recognized Sam Darnold wasn't seeing it, they started sending the heat. They're like, we're not going to be punished by Sam Darnold making throws right now because he's not on target. So if we just send pressure, it is going to, number one, protect our back end. And then number two, start adding more hits. And now he's going to be a little bit more inaccurate. So great game plan from the Lions to recognize that, make the adjustment, and start sending even more pressure. And I look forward to a matchup probably in the divisional round.
So wildcard weekend, Monday Night Football, you get Vikings at Rams. 1,000% the Rams defense needs to blitz Sam Darnold mercilessly. But this is why I love football, is if Kevin O'Connell is the coach I think he is, they make the adjustment. He's a Vikings head coach. He's going to go into that game on Monday night against the Rams and go, look, we know they're going to come after us. They're going to try to do what Detroit just did to us. We're going to beat the blitz. Sam, we got a plan. We're prepared for it. I think that's exactly how Monday Night Football is going to go, and I'm expecting Minnesota to come out with a game plan to beat the blitz and make an adjustment that I just don't think quite happened the way it needed to in Detroit the final week of the year. Now, the narrative of this game was Minnesota might walk away from it because the Lions defense is so banged up. For Sam to be off, and then also the Lions defense to deliver the way they did. But I also, as much credit as I think on the broadcast they gave to the Lions defense, the truth is Patrick Mahomes carves that defense up. Like, there were a lot of opportunities missed by Minnesota. They were on the goal line multiple times.
Sam Darnold on a different day carves that up.
Yeah, I mean,
right? And he did it the last time they played.
I don't think it was a legendary defensive performance so much as it was an off performance from Sam, because again, receivers were open, opportunities were there. They're on the goal line multiple times. He missed a field goal. Like, this was Minnesota giving the game away and not keeping up with Detroit. And Detroit didn't have a great game. Jerod Goff had multiple turnovers. Like, it was honestly like this was Minnesota, in my opinion, giving the game away rather than Detroit pulling away and really flex their muscles while they're 15-2. I know that's going to maybe upset Detroit Lions fans who want credit and want recognition, and they are the number one team in the country, in the nation, in the NFL. I almost say country like it's college football.
In the nation.
But you said, like, this game is closer than the final score would show, and I totally agree. And I think in a rematch, this could be potentially a really great game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you want to add to this? I was just disappointed, man. I wanted that Cinderella great fourth quarter moment, and we just didn't get that in this game, and I was sad about it.
I just want to add to Jahmyr Gibbs having 1,400 yards this year.
Oh,
he had, I think, a little over 250 carries, or maybe just about. Everyone else who's in that 1,400 and up, they've got 300 plus carries. His efficiency is through the roof, and you see his explosiveness and his ability to catch passes out of the backfield. I mean, if he's healthy, I don't even know. Like, he is such a weapon. As long as he's healthy on offense, to me, he is the catalyst. As much as I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, as much as I love Jameson Williams for those deep shots, it is about getting Jahmyr Gibbs going in both the run game and the pass game. And having a guy that's that dynamic is so special for the Lions. Just want to tip the cap to the great season that he had following up his great rookie season. Awesome.
5 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. 23 carries for 139 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. 4 touchdowns on the night. All 4 of their touchdowns was Jameson Williams, or was Jahmyr Gibbs, excuse me. One thing I think it deserves a conversation real briefly. Tommy and I watching the game last night asked me, hey, is Jahmyr Gibbs the best running back in football? And I paused. I'm like, I guess it's Saquon Barkley, right? But then I was like, man, if Jahmyr Gibbs got the carries Saquon Barkley got and the opportunities Saquon Barkley got, I think Jahmyr Gibbs could lead the NFL in rushing and every stat that a running back can have. He's got to share carries with another running back, and I think that's good for. I think that's good for Detroit, and it's also probably good for the longevity of Jahmyr Gibbs. However, it does limit, I think, the exposure. I think it keeps his numbers down a little bit, and I would not mind seeing the day where Jahmyr Gibbs is just unleashed and given the Derrick Henry or the Saquon Barkley, you get every opportunity treatment. But the problem is, I also don't think that's good for his, if he wants to play 10, 12 years, he needs to split time and limit reps. It's just going to keep him healthier. So it's a double-edged sword. I think from the numbers and the explanation standpoint, it's kind of sad, but Jahmyr Gibbs on the right track, and the Lions' way they managed him is fantastic.
Yeah, they did an excellent job this year with him. I'm not sure. Did David Montgomery get over 1,000 yards? And I might need to get Stat Nerd corrected on this, but I believe that the Lions have 2,000-yard rushers with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then 2,000-yard receivers with Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I could be wrong, but I believe that I saw that out there.
And the reason why I didn't say David Montgomery, he's not healthy right now. I think he's coming back for the playoffs. But he's David Montgomery this year, 775 yards. So, okay. But he didn't play.
I think it might have been like 1,000 total yards. I don't know. The bottom line is that Detroit offense is special. Jahmyr Gibbs is the catalyst. It is so great that you have a tandem running back with David Montgomery, and hopefully he stays with the team. Hopefully he gets back to being healthy. And so next year, when they run this thing back, likely without Ben Johnson, you still have those two pillars in your backfield.
Well, so David Montgomery didn't play after he got hurt in that Buffalo game on December 15th, a couple weeks ago. So he would have easily been a 1,000-yard rusher if he hadn't gotten hurt. Mm-hmm. I think if I'm David Montgomery, I'm taking a little less money to stay in Detroit because you're going to have a longer career and make a little more money in the long run, splitting carries with with Jahmyr Gibbs, excuse me. I know you got to put your ego aside. I don't think they have a problem with, what do they call them? Sonic and Knuckles, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they like each other and they work well together. But I hope these two men, and it seems like they recognize that them being on the same team, in the same building, on the same roster together just helps each other. They get fewer opportunities than I think like Saquon or Derrick Henry does, but they're healthy, they're fresh, they're rested. And from the Lions standpoint, the last month of that David Montgomery, they've been okay because they've got Jahmyr Gibbs. They can handle an injury. And I don't know if that's sustainable long-term from like these individual players' mindset, but if I'm them, I would try to think about it that way. Go, look, I'm better because he's here. Kind of like if, like in my company, having another great salesman is going to fill up the install schedule, right? And it's going to suck, but it would still make our company better. The better people that work around me are going to elevate our company in general. So
yeah, we're just going to have to see what happens when Gibbs's rookie contract is up. How much is he going to want? How much is David Montgomery going to continue to get paid? I know that people felt like Detroit overpaid him a couple years ago. So where does that net out?
I think as far as talent and also Saquon, I know he's in his late 20s, but Derrick Henry's past 30. Saquon's not getting younger. David Montgomery is going to reach a point where I keep saying Derrick. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to reach a point where he's the most talented, obvious best running back in football. I really believe that. He's on that track. Kind of like Alvin Kamara was clearly a couple of years ago, and they got a similar skill set. And he's going to demand the most money in football. But I also think Jared Goff's contract leaves a little bit of room to pay a running back. So it's a lot of interesting conversations. They better get a Super Bowl this year, man. Like this is the year. If there's ever a year for Detroit to bring it home, this is the year, man.
Has to be.
There is nothing like being in person for an NFL playoff game. The energy, the sound, the crowd, it's incredible. And Game Time can help you get NFL playoff tickets. Here is what Game Time does for you. The Game Time Picks feature allows for curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. They have all-in pricing, which is a feature that makes sure there are no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your tickets, and Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. You want to talk about Jerod Mayo, the Patriots head coach?
Man, I mean, I don't know if there's a whole ton to say other than, to me, it's clear that he kind of got scapegoated. Would you agree?
Yeah, so let's for anyone who doesn't know, Jerod Mayo, the Patriots head coach, got fired. They won this weekend, 23-16. They beat the Bills. They're 4-13, and winning actually put them out of contention for the number one pick. And then he got fired. I I like Jerod Mayo. I thought he did some good stuff this year. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible. You said the word scapegoat. I agree, but I also, in the same breath, and we can talk about, was it fair? We'll talk about Robert Kraft. I will just say this, though. You got Drake May, a really talented young quarterback. You can't screw around. Like, you have to go get the right coach, frankly, an offensive head coach to develop your young quarterback. This is a crucial moment in his career where he needs the absolute right coach to help develop him into the quarterback he needs to be. And as much as I respect Jerod Mayo, he's not the guy to do that. And so there's a sense of urgency you have to have in this situation. That when you hired Jerod Mayo, you didn't know for sure you were going to get Drake May. Now you know Drake May is good. Now you know you got him. You can't waste that opportunity. So you actually, I think, had to fire Jerod Mayo, even if it's ugly and uncomfortable, and I think damages a potential relationship between owner and coach. What else do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think that was the surprising piece. Was Drake May was better a lot sooner than they thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
Right. Originally, the plan was Jacoby Brissett essentially all year. Right. And then they kind of wanted to see Drake May, and then Jacoby has the injury. So now it has to be Drake May. And you start to see him ball and make big throws and show up in big moments. And I mean, I wouldn't say the biggest moment. It's not like they won a bunch of games, but you saw his growth and his raw talent and his ability. And the moment that you see that, they know that they did not have the right staff in place in order to help him develop. So they did have to make the business decision and fire Jerod Mayo. However, if there was an intent, and I do believe that there was an intent 100% of the time for the New England Patriots to draft a quarterback, whether that would have ended up being Drake May, or whether for some reason Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix or Michael, whoever, they were going to draft a quarterback, correct? So why would you have not made a hire based on that thought? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
again, like I understand all the context that has gone into firing Jerod Mayo, but when you were going to make that hire in the first place, why not just get a guy that you felt like was going to be right for whatever quarterback you were going to draft?
I have a question that relates to this. Fern of Lee's, and I read this question on the show 2 weeks ago. I want to reread it though, because I think it matters in this conversation. Fern of Lee's said, "Hello, Zach Kingdom and Nathan Nation. I just thought of a random question that probably is a very dumb one. I was thinking about the term bridge quarterback, and that got me wondering, is there such a thing as a bridge head coach? Or is it a coping mechanism to think that way? Maybe I thought that as I need that copium. My team is just unwillingly tanking. Thank you, both of you, for the show, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays." That was 2 weeks ago. They might be referring to the Patriots. What I want to say, though, there is a bridge the gap head coach. I mean, Antonio Pierce in Las Vegas with the Raiders was not hired because they thought he could win them a Super Bowl. They're like, look, someone's got to be our head coach this year. We need someone for right now. Jerod Mayo, I think it's unfortunate it's at his expense, but he got an opportunity to be a head coach, which he wasn't going to get, frankly, anywhere else at the other 31 NFL teams. It was only New England that was going to give him that opportunity. So he got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He did okay. He wasn't great, but he was never, I think, the plan to get them to the Super Bowl. They fired Bill Belichick, and they're like, what do we do now? Like, how do you follow up Bill Belichick? And I don't know that the coach they really wanted was out there. They weren't going to get Harbaugh. Like, they're like, we need someone to babysit this team for a year. That was what Jerod Mayo's role was, and that might have not have been spoken to him. I also don't know that you want to say that to Jerod Mayo when you hire him. Like, you don't want to put that guy in that position, but that is the position he was put in. And I don't know what you saw of Robert Kraft today. If you want to lead us into what he said today, but I'll let you do it. Do you want to say what, kind of regurgitate in paraphrasing Robert Kraft, the head coach of the owner of the Patriots, said today about the firing?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw a small snippet of the interview talking specifically about Jerod, and I thought it was great to see Kraft own the fact that they put him in a shit situation. I think that's the first thing we talked about as soon as Jerod was fired. We're like, man, like that was just a shit situation. Like there's no way, there was no way for him to win this year. And for Kraft to acknowledge that and say, like, we basically wasted a year at his expense, and this is not on him or doesn't speak to his, ability to be a great head coach. They said that, hey, like essentially we can't mess up this opportunity with Drake May. Jerod isn't the right guy for Drake May. So I can appreciate the transparency for the decision that they made. But again, like back to the Patreon question, I just don't think you hire a bridge head coach. I think that's just lazy. And I don't know, and maybe you're right, maybe the head coach that they wanted wasn't going to be available, but who is available this year that wasn't last year?
Ben Johnson. I think there's a lot of offensive coaches out there you can go get. And I just don't know that the coaching market is the same as it was last offseason.
I mean, outside of Ben Johnson, is he going to go to New England?
Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury. There's a lot of names out there that are on the offense side of the football. And
they
I
could
also
have hired Cliff Kingsbury.
I think
they hired Jerod so quickly after the exit of Belichick. It's like they didn't even put a search together.
I don't think they did. I think they just wanted. I think their life raft, their boat was sinking. Like, we need to get on a life raft right now just to stabilize things. Let's get something. And now is the time. They've got the quarterback. Now let's plan for our future with that quarterback. I just don't hate what happened. I think a lot of things can be true at the same time. Jerod Mayo was put in an impossible situation. They acknowledge it. That's true, but you still have to move forward with Drake May and do everything you can to support him. And so there was no reason to keep Jerod Mayo. They're just you couldn't keep him because you have to. I don't think a defensive head coach is the right thing for a young rookie quarterback. We saw the Bears fired one. We saw the Patriots have now fired one. Like, how many times have we seen? That's why Washington's kind of rare. They've got Dan Quinn, a defensive head coach, but the reason why Jay Daniels is working is because of Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, and that's very clear. D'Amico Ryan's a defensive head coach with a awesome offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick in Houston. Jerod Mayo didn't have a Bobby Slowick. He didn't have a Cliff Kingsbury. And so you have to go find the right guy to stabilize that situation with a young quarterback. And so I don't hate the Patriots for what happened. I think it all is explainable.
Yeah, no argument for the decisions that they made. It's very clear. Just sucks for Jerod Mayo specifically.
Yeah, I don't know that a coach like Jerod Mayo fits in today's NFL. Quite honestly, like, because if you're going to have a veteran quarterback, right, that's the only time I think you hire a defensive head coach. And if you do that, you probably bring in, like, the Bengals, for example. If they were going to hire a defensive head coach this year, it'd be Mike Vrabel. It would be someone like that who's done it before, earned that right. It's going to be increasingly difficult for a new defensive head coach to break into the coaching market. I really believe that, unless there's very specific situations. Like, if you got a veteran quarterback who's been there for 10 years and the old coach leaves, like, let's say if Andy Reid retired tomorrow, maybe you hire Steve Spagnuolo to be the defensive head coach there. And that might work because Patrick Mahomes is so good. They've got the infrastructure all around it. Spagnuolo knows the culture. But it's going to be really, really difficult for defensive head coaches specifically to become head coaches in today's NFL because of the need at quarterback.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing coaches and coordinators come as package deals, because it's becoming clear. Like, and this is what you do in business, right? You hire somebody to do the things that you are not good at. Andy Reid, I hire Spagnuolo so he can handle my defense, right? So if I'm a head coach now, whatever the opposite is of me, before I take any head coaching positions, I'm going to make sure that I can bring an offensive coordinator who's at an elite level, whether that's a guy who's been a head coach previously and is kind of reducing his role, whether that's a proven offensive coordinator, or maybe it's a hotshot college coach coming over. Whatever the case is, hire somebody who's great at what you aren't. Right. And so I don't think it's going to be defensive coaches specifically not getting a chance. And again, you pointed out Dan Quinn. It's just, what is the pairing? What is the marriage? Right. It's also situationally dependent, right? Like you talked about a great example of the Bengals with Mike Vrabel. He's not going to bring in any run-of-the-mill offensive coordinator guy. He's going to find the best possible guy to pair with Joe Burrow. And I'm sure that Joe Burrow would probably have a say in who becomes his offensive coordinator, right? So it's all so situational in marriage between your quarterback, your offensive coordinator, your head coach, defensive coordinator. It all just has to work together in some way, shape, or form. But the bottom line, the best teams have a good head coach and they have a coordinator who does what the head coach doesn't do. It's kind of that simple, isn't it?
Well, we're also, I think, in an era where we're going to continue to see more of what Vic Fangio is in Philadelphia, a guy who never wants to be a head coach again. He's a specialized defensive coordinator. He is a great, like an elite level defensive coordinator. And if for some reason he left Philly, he'd get any job anywhere in the NFL tomorrow to be a defensive coordinator, because that's what he does. Matt Eberflus was the head coach of the Bears and did a fucking terrible job. Let's be really real. Bad at game planning, bad at decision making, but he is a great defensive coordinator. It's called the Peter principle, and you promote someone until they fail. He should never be a head coach ever again. I'm totally convinced of that. However, I would hire Matt Eberflus tomorrow as the defensive coordinator of any team I run, because he's a really good, in Indianapolis, was a really outstanding defensive coordinator. Never should be head coach again, but he specialized in that role. And that's going to happen, I think, way more in today's NFL. You're going to see guys like Vic Fangio, Matt Eberflus, all kinds of coaches realize. Steve Spagnuolo is another one. Like, he's never getting a head coaching job again, but he's an incredible defensive coordinator in Kansas City. And that's the way the NFL's trending towards offense. And you're going to see mercenaries as defensive coordinators going all over the place. And you're going to see head coaches that are on the offensive side of the football to work with and stabilize the quarterback position.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was the I'm going to go back to our messages real quick. We were talking about the super staff. What if a bunch of these older kind of veteran coaches that are somewhat being phased out of the league created a super staff? Okay, hear me out. It's like Bill Belichick, head coach, like a guy like Pete Carroll, defensive coordinator, and then maybe like Mike McCarthy or offensive coordinator. I'm not saying that's a rock star staff in and of itself, but like, it'd be interesting to see kind of these veteran guys that are slowly being pushed out for the young, dynamic new guys to come and say, hold on, like the old folks still got it a little bit, right?
Yeah, and they'll make Aaron Rodgers their quarterback, and they're going to...
I'm so serious. A team that did that would be disgusting.
Not Aaron Rodgers.
We know that.
You mean just the coaches?
Okay, hear me out. This relates to both Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. I'm truthfully, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. We can do that. Save that for next year. Both of them are going to have better seasons next year. It is so hard. Both of them are going to start for somebody next year. I don't care what anybody says. Aaron's not retiring. There's no reason he would have balled out like that if he planned to retire. Kirk Cousins is going to end up being a bridge guy next year. Somebody's going to have to pick up his contract and pay him, or
like the Raiders or someone like that.
Right, whatever the case is. And I guarantee that both of them have better years than they did this year because of their mobility and their comfortability. Your Achilles rehab and your movement takes so much out of you, and it takes so much longer than people think to get it back. Cam Akers rushed back, and now he's never going to be the same again because he stretched it out too fast. And you got Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. When you're not in the pocket and you're not mobile and you can't move and slide like guys like Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes can, who are just great in the pocket, you're going to have a tough time.
Well, also, let me say this. I'd like to, real quick.
Yeah.
Your legs are everything as a quarterback. I remember my final training camp of college football. I lost my legs. We did conditioning. I was so effing pissed. We had this really fat starting quarterback who, like, no lie, had like an extra 40 pounds. I hated this guy. He was a douchebag and overweight. And he claimed he was injured, so he didn't have to do conditioning. And I was like, are you serious? I did conditioning and it just wiped out my legs. I could never get them back. I was sore. I was uncomfortable. And without my legs, I was so sore. Like, it was so difficult to throw the football. And I'm not kidding. Like, your legs are everything as a quarterback. If you don't have your base, the foundation of what you're doing, throwing the football and moving around, it's like really nearly impossible to do that job. And so if there's any sort of like uncomfortability with that, an Achilles, I think you hurt your Achilles at one point, right? Did I make that up?
I ruptured my Achilles in 2022.
And so is now this year you starting to feel back to where you were like 2 years later?
It is still not the same range of motion that it was. Now, granted, I'm not doing all the rehab anymore, right?
NFL doctors.
Right. But the bottom line is once you have surgery and that the muscles, not just around your calf, right? In the bottom of your foot, your quad, your hamstring, everything becomes imbalanced and everything atrophies and you start losing that muscle. So it's not just rehabbing the Achilles and stretching it back out. It is rehabbing that entire leg and balancing it with your other leg and trying to find the neutral side so you don't recur and have more injuries. So it's a complete rebuild of the lower half of your body and your core. And I don't think that people understand how aggressive that really is.
The way we got onto that whole conversation on our text thread was you told me like the Bears are... They requested to interview Mike McCarthy to be their head coach, which, by the way, is a wild sentence because he's still the Cowboys head coach. Currently hasn't been fired yet.
Yeah.
Wow. Now,
and it's not like it's a coordinator or anything either. you're going for the boss man.
And he's not a good head coach. I don't know what the heck they're thinking in Chicago. I just really don't understand.
Dak had his best year with Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers had his best years with Mike McCarthy. I'm not saying that
Russell Wilson had his best year with Pete Carroll's head coach. Like, that argument doesn't go anywhere. Like, I just don't.
Right, but Pete Carroll was a defensive guy, right?
I know.
Mike McCarthy is a quarterback guy. He's kind of like the guy that's like just throw that one a little bit higher. Hey, come on, throw that one a little bit lower. Like, he's not trying to be all up in their head. He's like, hey man, go out, ball, play your game. I think that is arguably just as good for Caleb. I don't know if a guy like Ben Johnson is the right guy for Caleb. Caleb's not a timing and rhythm guy. He's closer to a Josh Allen, an instinctual guy, right? Like first read and a half, and then boom, out of the pocket and extending the play. He needs a guy who's going to call a game like that, not a Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson, where it's like, hey, at the snap, this is your 1, 2, 3, and then here's your check down. If this isn't here, we've called 2 plays and we're checking to this. He needs a system that allows Caleb to be Caleb.
I don't entirely agree. I think
would he benefit from the structure of a guy like Ben Johnson? Probably, but Ben Johnson's also never been a head coach.
Yeah, what I'll say here. These old coaches, man. I want to take this conversation, Bill Belichick, actually, because my response to you on text messages was like, no, he needs to go coach with the dinosaurs and Bill Belichick in college. And Bill Belichick specifically, I have zero confidence in coaching in the NFL again. Feel free to prove me wrong. Bill was great years ago, right? He won Super Bowls. He was incredible, best head coach ever. But the NFL changed, and I think your relationship with players is more important than ever. And I don't think the approach of Bill Belichick. I saw a video the other day of something like this. This rookie player, he blocked a punt or something and grabbed it. It was something in the punting game, and he got the ball, and he went and brought it to Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick scowled at him like, "What the hell is this rookie doing, talking to me?" And then a staffer had to pull the guy away, and it was this guy excited to give his head coach a ball. Fucking celebrate, dude! Fucking be excited. How about your rookie player made an awesome play? Be proud of the guy. And Bill Belichick comes across as so cold and unwelcoming. And I just don't think that works in today's football landscape. It really doesn't. You got to be Andy Reid having fun doing commercials with Patrick Mahomes. You have to adjust to today's player-friendly NFL. And I just do not think Belichick specifically can do that. I just don't. I've never seen that from him. I think he's an awesome dude. I'd love to have a beer with him. I don't think he's warm enough, literally, to be an NFL head coach again. And then Mike McCarthy with the Bears. I know that's where this conversation really should go. I want to see them hire a young, dynamic head coach you can pair with Caleb Williams for a long time. And look, maybe you hire Mike McCarthy for a year or two and he stabilizes things and then you move on to the next guy. Because I think another problem with Mike McCarthy, he's hung around too long in every job he's had. Packers, he ran into the ground. He was good, and then he ran into the ground.
Early Aaron with the Rodgers Cowboys, ran that into the ground for him.
We can have that discussion, but yeah. I think he could have. I think he stayed longer than he was emotionally invested in Green Bay anymore. I think we can both agree on that. The stories you hear about it, you're like, he was really done, and he stayed longer than he probably should have. I think the same is going on in Dallas. I don't think it's a terrible hire. I just think they can do better, and I want better from that team, and from that ownership group. And the other guy that I've heard you told me they're interested in Arthur Smith, the Steelers offensive coordinator. Hey man, can we find anyone in there younger than 60 maybe to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears? I don't know what, and I don't know if McCaskey, that old 100-year-old lady's running that decision. I don't know if it's Ryan Poles who's going to have absolute authority. If Ryan Poles is the guy hiring Mike McCarthy, that's different to me than ownership, because I think I respect Ryan Poles as a general manager. I don't know. I'm really interested to see what the Bears do. I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Sometimes to me, it's, do you look right in the colors? There's some coaches that don't look right wearing the colors. Like Jim Harbaugh, he looks right wearing Los Angeles Chargers colors, right? And what was his name before him?
Brandon
Staley.
Staley.
Never,
Yeah.
never quite looked right wearing the Chargers colors. Pete Carroll, for a longest time in Seattle, looked great in those colors. And to me, you just need a guy that kind of fits the grittiness of the city. And I don't think that an offensive, I'm saying I'd like an offensive guy, but you need somebody who's just got is it just a little rougher around the edges. And I don't know how else to describe it other than that. But part of head coaching is adopting the mantra of the city. Like Dan Campbell, perfect for Detroit. Mike McDaniel, perfect for Miami. Right, like you just have to. Mike Tomlin, great in Pittsburgh. Right, that toughness. John Harbaugh, great with the Ravens. It's just there's a little bit of just like intuition. There's a little bit of something you can't quite describe, something that's intangible about who that head coach has to be. And that's why I feel more like a guy like Vrabel paired with a great offensive coordinator makes more sense.
I have a lot to say. And I think what you mean by does he look good in the colors? Does he fit the city? Does he fit the culture of the organization?
Yeah.
Here's the problem, though. The Bears have a dog shit culture. Like, I'm sorry. That's never been in my lifetime, it's never really been a healthy place to be a quarterback.
I should say the legacy of the culture. Like when you think about the Bears, 85 Bears, for example, like
Yeah.
what that means, what Ditka looked like on the sidelines, like that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. What's the historical legacy feeling of when that team was at their best? How do you bring that feeling back? Who brings that feeling back?
Very, very peacefully, though. I mean this with absolute respect to the fan base in Chicago. The fans' relationship with the head coach doesn't matter. It doesn't. What matters is you. If you win, they're gonna like you, and if you don't, they're gonna hate you. I don't care if
Right.
you're rough around the edges. I don't care if you fit the vibe of the city. Dude, I don't care if they hire a Swedish dude who wears like really cool turtlenecks and looks like a total like James Bond or something. If he wins games, he wins games, and they'll figure out how to like him. Like, I think you need to hire a coach. I just don't. I don't think that line of thinking matters. I don't fit in
But
the
it
city,
does.
and I've heard that my whole life. And I think what needs to happen in Chicago is a transformation of the culture, and everything in that organization has to change. And a Ben Johnson who comes and does stuff his own way and is a little different, that might be good for Chicago.
Yeah, and it very well could be. But how does he approach it? Does he approach it from the, I'm the guy with the playbook, writing the plays, designing the plays, and I keep my head down and I've got this massive sheet on the sideline and I'm checking stuff off? Or does he embrace it like the head coach that he's currently with, Dan Campbell, that's a little bit louder, a little more boisterous? I don't know enough about his personality to
Yeah.
manage a city like Chicago. Because as much as you talk about the relationship with the fans, it's also the relationship with the media. It's a relationship literally with the weather that you have in Chicago. Like
Yeah.
there's all these different elements. And so when you talk about that intangible feeling of a coach in a city, like that's what it's about. Does that guy encompass what the city is and what it feels like? And then how does that translate to football and what's the product of that?
Yeah.
And
I think
I'm not saying like Ben Johnson can't be the guy by any means. I just feel like Ben Johnson would do better in a different situation.
I don't think you're wrong. I think Ben Johnson, we talked about this earlier, fits best in Jacksonville. By the way, he plays indoors in Detroit. Like, you know what I mean? I think he should go to Jacksonville personally. I think, and I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville, if we just want to completely transition away from it, Jacksonville would be way better for Ben Johnson, right? If you think about the leash that he would have in Jacksonville versus the leash that he would have in Chicago, things need to work day one in Chicago. I mean, you can say that about every NFL head coaching job, but if it's not going right and you're on your third, fourth head coach in however many years, and you're supposed to be the new offensive guy in Chicago, and now you and Caleb aren't clicking, and now the defense is bad because you don't have Eberflus, and then your offense isn't working, that's bad. But you go down to Jacksonville and you get yourself a great defensive coordinator, and you got Trevor Lawrence down there. You've got Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. Maybe you draft another back in the second round, like a Travion Henderson. So then you have Etienne and Henderson. There's your two backs, right? And then you've got Evan Ingram, a great pass catching tight end. Then you've got Christian Kirk, who can be your Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got Brian Thomas Jr. to be your Jameson Williams. Like the things just kind of go like one and one together a little bit. But yeah, and Ben Johnson, he'll take the job that he feels like is best for him. But I think about the leash that he would have and the opportunity to really like create a culture, right? Chicago's got a culture, for better or for worse, in terms of like the defense, cold, tough city. Jacksonville is just kind of like, you're an NFL team and they don't have anything. So he'd have an opportunity to go there and put a stamp down. And I think that'd be interesting.
I have a couple thoughts. Number one, the four best coaches that I would personally be interested in hiring. I'm not messing with these defensive coaches. I'm really not. Aaron Glenn, the guy, what's the guy from? He was the head. Brian Flores. He was the head coach in Miami. Like I'm not touching it. Mike Vrabel even only fits with like a Joe Burrow or a veteran quarterback, in my opinion. You got a young quarterback, so it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady, Ben Johnson. There's one other name I'm thinking. There's one other name.
Are you still thinking Bobby Slowick?
Bobby Slowick, yeah. So
I don't know. This year didn't look great.
But I think I trust him more than I trust a defensive head coach. Then think of the context of Chicago specifically. They just had a defensive head coach, and it didn't work well with their young quarterback. So you can't go back to defense. To be honest, all those four names: Bobby Slowick, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady, Ben Johnson. I don't think any of them are that interested in going to Chicago. You have to hire the offensive side of the football. With all that thought process in mind, it actually reframes Mike McCarthy in a much better light. Like, you know what? This might be the best offensive head coach we can possibly get, and we got to go offense with this hire. And these young, dynamic head coaches on the offense side of the football probably don't want to come to Chicago. And I got to also say this about Chicago. I wouldn't want to coach in Chicago, even with Caleb Williams. The city sucks. The attitude's terrible. The fan base is really, really rude and awful to you. The weather's terrible. I don't want to play in that division. I don't want to try to coach throwing the football in December in Chicago by the lake. When specifically you could go to Jacksonville, you could go to other cities that are warmer weather, easier to throw the football, easier to run an offense, and the fan base isn't going to come down on you and like throw bricks at your house. So I just don't think Chicago is a good opportunity. And I think part of why now that I think about it and talk it out, the reason why Mike McCarthy's name has been thrown out there is because they realize we're going to have a hard time attracting the top offensive minds in this head coaching class. But we got to go offense. So what's the other answer?
Hear me out. Craziest hire,
okay.
Joe Brady. Offensive coordinator with the Bills. You pull him, make him your head coach. You get him a defensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator who have been around, right? Just like Sirianni did. Surround yourself with guys who have been around the league. That would be interesting to me. I know that Joe Brady has had Josh Allen in his career. He's had Joe Burrow in his career. So he's had two very elite quarterbacks, which makes your functioning offense better. But I was talking about the play style of Caleb Williams. Joe Brady, the offense that he calls, the way he just runs what works, right? There's few coaches that, there's coaches that have their plays in their playbook, and like they call their game script and they have their set of plays that they're going to run that game. But then there's guys like Joe Brady, like Kevin O'Connell, like they just have the right call all the time. Ben Johnson for the situation. It's not about just, calling this play because it's 3rd and 7. So these are my 5 plays. It's like, fuck it. Like, let's go to this play that we installed in week 3 against the Panthers, and we're going to run that in week 13 against the Lions, right? Like, those kind of guys are incredibly special, and that's why I think Joe Brady would be interesting.
Dude, I think you just hit a grand slam. I really do. I think that Joe Brady is exactly the coach who we talked about, right? Like we need a coach who is comfortable with Caleb Williams' ability to extend plays and get outside of structure. I think Cliff Kingsbury has some of that, but I think Joe Brady, when Joe Burrow was playing at LSU, he had a quarterback who did that. With Josh Allen, he has a quarterback who does that. He designs an offense that allows room to play outside of structure, and on top of that, like you said, he finds a hot hand. He just goes with what's working in a game time decision, game to game basis. Hey, our running backs crushing it, running for 8 yards a carry. We're just going to run the ball all game long. Even though we got Josh Allen, arguably the best quarterback or top 3 quarterback in the NFL, today's a James Cook day, and we saw that happen this year. Dude, I think that's the only coach that makes sense, to be honest. Joe Brady, and then if you can't get Joe Brady, probably go with Mike McCarthy, because again, I think that there's just a finite amount of coaches and resources out there. So I would love for the Bears to take a shot on Joe Brady, honestly.
That actually wouldn't be bad. In terms of McCarthy, if all else fails, you're talking about bridge quarterbacks. I'm against it. I'm sorry, not quarterbacks, bridge coaches. I mean, you talk about a guy who can get everybody kind of going in the right direction offensively, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, the Cowboys were great when they had him and Dan Quinn. Who's to say you don't get another strong defensive coordinator and, maybe put a season or two together, then it doesn't work out. And, maybe Joe Brady needs, a couple more years developing as a coordinator before he can be a head coach, or, a lot of different things can happen. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, Mike McCarthy in that role. But again, he's got to be willing to leave Dallas, and Dallas has to let him go. There's that whole situation is so weird.
I also really like, I'm trying to think of a name. There is, I just can't, I can't find him. There's a specific coach who coaches under Vic Fangio in Philadelphia who I think could be elevated to a defensive coordinator position and maybe could come to Chicago and do great. Or maybe Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator of the Bears, paired with, Joe Brady. I don't know that I like Robert. I'd rather have an even more veteran head coach, to be totally honest. But
sure, same.
I know that Robert Saleh can coach a hell out of a defense. So it's too bad you can't bring Matt Eberflus back. I think the thing is, Matt Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator, but you can't really. I know Vance Joseph does that in Denver. It's very rare to fire a head coach, then bring him back as your defensive coordinator, and it's too soon for that. But I don't know, man. I want Joe Brady in Chicago with a Wade Phillips type, like when we had Sean McVay with the Rams, a really old veteran defensive coordinator who can help bring perspective for a young head coach.
What do you think about Rex Ryan right now, trying to go back and take the Jets job?
Would Rex Ryan put his ego aside and be the Bears defensive coordinator? Because if he can't put his ego aside, what are we doing? And also, he's really comfortable on TV. I don't know why he would mess it up, to be honest.
Why do you want the stress? Why do you want the stress of head coaching again? That sounds horrible.
Nick Saban seems to love TV.
Nick Saban's crushing it on TV.
Do you want to coach the Jets, dude? Are you kidding? Does he want to work with Aaron Rodgers? Like, what's he said about that?
Oh, he's got a full audio clip. It's like, if my quarterback, it's mandatory minicamp, he's not there. Like, we're not playing that sort of game. If you're going to be there when you need to be there, it's not going to be the country club, blah, blah, blah. Right. Saying all the right things.
Someone needs to keep Aaron Rodgers in check, to be honest.
I still don't think he's going to end up staying with the Jets, but also you've invested in Devontae Adams now. You've got Garrett Wilson. You want a quarterback to throw them the football. And I don't know whether you get that through the draft or you find somebody to bridge or what the deal is, but I don't think keeping Aaron is the worst thing, but you need somebody to politely fight with Aaron. And I think Matt LaFleur did the best job those first 3 years in Green Bay with Aaron at doing that.
Dude, if I were hired by the Jets to be head coach, I'd say, look, man, I know who you are. I know you're a millionaire. I know you got all this power. But we have to work together, and you have to listen to me. Like, you fall in line under me. I'm the head coach. You work for me. And if that doesn't work, I'll walk away. I think Rex Ryan has the balls to do that, to be honest. And have you watched the Aaron Rodgers documentary at all?
No. Is that on Netflix?
Yeah.
I have not seen it.
Dude, you got to watch 10 minutes. That's all I ask. He is the douchiest motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life. I really have tried so hard to like Aaron Rodgers. But man, as somebody who works in healthcare, like, you hear surgeons specifically think they're like God's gift to the earth. And they're like, my hands are the most valuable hands in this hospital because of my work. I can do with surgeries. And Aaron Rodgers sounds like a surgeon or like a tech billionaire who thinks he made some code in the 90s, got really rich, and thinks he's like the best thing ever. You got to watch that Netflix doc because it's so telling about Aaron Rodgers' personality.
Spoiler alert, Aaron Rodgers does win one of my many awards tonight.
Well, we could transition into that, honestly, if you want. Let's put a cap on this first, though. I also agree, like, the Jets need a quarterback next year. They're not going to get who they want in the draft, to be totally honest. I love the cat. The cat on the mic. Cat's on the show, dude.
Wow. Rhea is saying that I should be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. That is quite the endorsement, sweetheart. But I need you not to get behind all of my cords.
She's going to like rip out the power cord right as we go. I think that would be optimal right now.
That'd be something to see.
What I was going to say, I don't know that. I think Aaron Rodgers is the best possible outcome next year for the Jets because they don't have a high enough draft pick. I think you keep Aaron and you draft someone in like the second round that could maybe become what they need. But I don't think it makes sense to, because if you get rid of Aaron, you got to bring in another, like a Kirk Cousins or someone like that. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to, or Derek Carr, it's not a great situation with the Jets and their quarterback possibilities.
I still contend that if they didn't fire Robert Saleh, and they would have ended up beating the Bills, if they beat the Bills, right? There's no saying they would.
Yeah.
The season could have looked entirely different. They needed that moment and that spark to say, okay, things are going to work, because winning cures all, right?
Yeah.
They needed that win to reaffirm that, and they didn't get it. And then you fire your head coach, and then you change your play caller, and then things just fall to shit after that. So as much went wrong in Chicago, many things equally went wrong in terms of, change of staff and change of people around happened in New York. And again, I just think that next year would be better. Aaron Rodgers is still a solid quarterback. He's not, MVP Aaron Rodgers right now, but he's going to be better than signing a guy like Bailey Zappi or trying a flyer on Josh Dobbs or any of those other guys. If you can, like you're saying, if you can get him to fall in line underneath the head coach, you've still got some serious potential on that offense. I don't think Breece Hall is as advertised. I think they probably still need another back. But they've got some pieces to not be as horrible as they were this year.
Dude, I'll be honest. I think Rex Ryan's exactly the coach. I mean, it's because it's a 1-year experiment. If it fails, it fails. But you actually need someone. Look, the owner seems like an idiot in New York with the Jets. So you need a head coach who's going to fight with the owner and push back against that. You need someone to push back against Aaron Rodgers. They've got a lot of great weapons on defense. You can, with Rex Ryan calling the shots on that defense, I think they could really perform at a high level. And they've got a good running game. And I think Rex Ryan actually is the right guy to come and make a lot of people really uncomfortable and push things around and make lots of changes. But that's frankly what they need in New York is a Rex Ryan to come shake things up and make a lot of people uncomfortable, owner and quarterback included.
Absolutely.
Your headphones good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, they mess up for a little bit. We're good now.
Well, after this, I want to get into your Nathan Awards,
the superlatives.
But we got to talk about Nathan. You've talked all year about this one team. You're a huge fan of them. You love them, and I think you thought they were going to win a national title. And you know what happened? They came in their playoff game and laid an absolute goose egg. Ohio State beat Oregon 41-21. This is old news now, but you're the Duck guy. We talked all year about the Oregon Ducks. So we didn't put it at the top of the show because it's not current events. But man, I got to hear from you. What'd you make of watching number 8 Ohio State not just beat, but really dominate and crush the Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl 41-21?
Wow. That's a lot to take in. That's
34-8 at halftime, Nathan.
Yeah. So here's what happened. Let's just talk about this. All teams that had a bye lost.
Yep.
I'm not going to complain about the seedings and whatnot. Should Oregon have played Ohio State in that first round? For them, their first round, probably not. But the bottom line is they came out flat, which can be expected after having essentially a month off of football.
Yeah,
and it's not just they're practicing every day. You've got the holidays everywhere in between that time from Thanksgiving to Christmas through that New Year's. It's hard, right, to keep the team focused and keep them energized. Within that time frame, obviously Ohio State didn't play a Big Ten championship game, so that's one less game for them. And then they get that warm-up game against Tennessee, who has a great defense, and honestly provided a lot of similar looks defensively than the University of Oregon did. And then they just jumped on them. That's the big difference. Is the thing I talked about the most to people that were around me was, if Will Howard throws the ball well, they're going to win. And I didn't think that Oregon stood a chance if that was the case. That's all Will Howard had to do was just throw the ball well and make big throws when he needed to. They jumped out early. And then once you get the hole just got too big. There's no other way to say it. The Ohio State jumped out on them, got the lead, and Oregon, instead of saying oh, we got punched in the mouth, let's go, they said, oh shit, we're kind of fucked. and then it was downhill from there. At no point did Oregon swing back. And honestly, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly just danced circles around Dan Lanning on that defensive side of the football. And to me, what kills me is just the way Will Stein was calling the game. Again, he's a guy who's been in the box 95% of the year. For some reason, he was down on the sideline trying to call the game. Like, that's just not a change I would make, in a college football playoff setting. Just, I don't know. This is a couple times now where Dan Lanning, and I go back to against UW last year and in the Pac-12 championship last year, in these big games, like Dan Lanning has not gotten his guys to play at a top tier level. You could even go back to the first game against Georgia, right? Now, granted, that's going against a team that inevitably wins the national championship. Kirby Smart, you just played there. It's actually your first game coaching at the U of O and being a head coach. But there's starting to appear a pattern with Dan Lanning that he gets out coached in these big moments. And I see a lot of the same mistakes happen. Yeah, I mean, that gets into the broader scope of Oregon football, but for that game, it was just an ass whooping. There's no other way to put it. Ohio State jumped out on them. Whatever game script Oregon may or may not have had wasn't going to work at that point, especially defensively. Offensively, once you get down, you can't even try and develop the run game because now you got to throw to catch up. It was all bad, man. And I just literally, I think midway through the second quarter, I was like, all right, I'm done. And that's just what it was.
I'll say, man, I do think there's something to all four teams that got that long bye, which really was...
That's way too long.
You got to buy... All the teams that played the first week got to buy. In the first round, got to buy, to be honest, because they got 2 weeks to prepare for that game. I thought that round one should have happened faster. 2 weeks is one thing, 3 is another. And every team that got 3 to 4 weeks off really, really came out flat. They did not look sharp in the first half of any of those football games, Oregon included. And I think there's a disadvantage there. It's also weird that the top 4 teams in the country didn't get a home playoff game. They kind of got penalized. It's kind of silly and weird. It's also interesting that, frankly, the last 4 seeds of the college football playoff weren't competitive at all. It's we probably would be fine with 8 teams. So we could do 8 and have, 3 rounds and then no one has a bye. And I'd be fine with that. Honestly, I don't know that the bye is really a reward for the top 4 teams at all.
Yeah.
It's not good. But the key to this Dan Lanning's awesome. Great story. Good year. Nothing but good vibes to him. The story from this game to me is Will Howard, who I think has made it very clear when he's got a good game, Ohio State's unbeatable. And to me, Ohio State should be the favorite to win the national title. Out of the teams left, they're the clear front runner. Anything can happen any given Sunday. Things can go wrong or bad, but I think Ohio State should get the tip of the cap. And starting the year, I think we had this conversation in August or September. I was like, Ohio State should be the favorite. The team they've got together is incredible.
Up until Oregon played Ohio State, I was like, Ohio State's probably going to wax Oregon by 30. Mm-hmm. And it just happened to be in that second matchup and not the first matchup where everything, comes together when you're in that home setting in Eugene. It's really hard to win there for any team.
Yeah. But Oregon went to Michigan and won. Oregon beat Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State in their first year in the Big Ten. That means something, even though the way the year ended sucked. And frankly, I think hurt their recruitment, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt their recruitment if I'm being honest. The money is fine, right? Because that's what more of it's about right now is does the check clear? If the answer is yes, then I'm on my way, right? And then you layer in the facilities and the quote unquote trajectory of the program. There's still a lot of great things to be done at the University of Oregon, but can Dan Lanning continue to learn and become a better in-game coach? Right now, he feels like an even less polished version of year one Dan Campbell, right? Mm-hmm. Just kind of cavalier, a lot of faith in the team. He's got growth to do, and he'll have to continue to put together great staffs. The Big Ten is going to be a challenge again next year. And I think also just going back to the game, Ohio State had the benefit of being embarrassed losing to Michigan, right? They were way too good to lose that game. I mean, you talk about coming out flat and just not having it. They did, right? Oregon had already beat them. They're hot because they know that they have to win all of these games to get to the national championship. They bullied Tennessee. So now you've got a revenge game. You've got incredible confidence from Will Howard after that first game against Tennessee. And then you add the playoff stakes on top of that, which Ryan Day has experience in coaching. It was borderline a perfect storm for Ohio State to come in and dominate. And again, just Chip Kelly and company truly outclassed, Dan Lanning and his staff. Tosh Lupoi had no answer. Will Stein had no answer. Dan Lanning had no answer. And yeah, like you said, tip the cap. I do think Ohio State's the favorite. And I don't think it's particularly close. The roster and the skill is coming together and peaking at the right time. Very scary.
I got to say, I'm looking at the website for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Dom DeSandro has the most insane title I've ever seen in the NFL. Senior advisor to the general manager, chief security officer, game day coaching operations. He's got 3 titles. Advisor to the general manager doesn't even make any sense for a guy who's not a football guy. I don't know. But he's also security, but he's also like, I don't know. This is a weird left turn. I'm sorry. I guess we're done with Oregon, but I just had to say, like, it's the weirdest title I've ever seen in the NFL.
That's weird. He must just have a great feel for personnel. And because he's around the team so much, maybe he, can see some things that maybe he's a guy that Howie can be like, hey, like, Dom, I need you to keep an eye on this guy today. Let me know if he's cheating any reps, like that kind of guy. I don't know why they needed to put advisor on it, but I don't know.
My dad told me to never talk about him because he wants me to live.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Love you, Dom.
Yeah, I recommend you look at his past.
I'm just gonna take your word for it.
Don't say anything, and hopefully this is buried in the internet. No one ever sees this. But what a fascinating man. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about Oregon too. I gotta say, I know I just totally derailed everything, but I really thought the Ducks Ohio State game was gonna be the best game that weekend, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it when it happened, and I was so disappointed live.
I know. I really wanted the game to be competitive. The way they jumped out to the 2-score lead, I was like, all right, there's no chance. Mm-hmm. If it had been a 2-score lead, maybe late in the second quarter or mid-second quarter, it's different. But first 5 minutes of the game, you're down 4. You're like, whoa, what happened? Yeah. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Honestly, and now just college football playoff as a whole, why is it still going? There's still 2 more rounds. If you were to go all the way and you played a conference championship, you played an NFL season.
Yeah.
That is entirely too much. Like, I'm checked out from college football now. And not just because Oregon lost, but because usually, like, New Year's and that week after New Year's, like, everything's done. It's dusted. There's nothing more. Also, hold on. That game was played on a Wednesday. I don't care that it's New Year's and the Rose Bowl. Stop playing games on Wednesdays. That to me is so stupid. College football doesn't belong on a Wednesday. I don't care what the magnitude of the game is. Keep it on your Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. Absolutely no reason to be playing those games on a Wednesday just because it's New Year's. To me, that is stupid.
Wait till he finds out that Penn State plays Notre Dame on a Friday.
I just why? Why?
Friday? No, sorry. Thursday, Penn State plays Notre Dame, and Friday, this week we're gonna get the Texas. What's the other team left? Why am I blanking on the Texas Ohio State game? So
to me, that's just so asinine. That's just so stupid. And part of that problem is you have to compete with the NFL playoffs, right? So now you're like, oh shoot, like where do we put our games that don't get masked by the NFL? Well, the problem is you should have had these games happening sooner. And I know it was the first year of the 12-team playoff. 12 was too many. To me, 6 is just right. I don't even like 8. I like 6.
But it's because they want the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, like it's always been. It's because of all these old policies and traditions and all this nonsense, and it's
that no longer work. And also, right, they talk about, now we're just talking about the college football playoff as a whole, but you talk about the 4 automatic bids for conference champions. That was baked in before conference realignment. So imagine Texas wins the Big 12, Oregon wins the Pac 12, Ohio State wins the Big 10, Georgia wins the SEC. Those are two, like, that's four really good seeds, top four, sort them however you want, right? And then everyone else falls in behind. That made sense. But now, because you can be like Indiana or like SMU or like these other teams that kind of dominated those lower seeds, you can dodge playing Ohio State and you can dodge playing Oregon. You can dodge playing all these other teams in your conference and have it look great. Oh, you're undefeated in the Big Ten. Well, yeah, you didn't play any good members of the Big Ten, right? And the one game you did, you got blown out by Ohio State. And so the whole setup of conference realignment has just created so many problems for the current structure of the college football playoff.
We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. One of them was a one-score game. Texas, Arizona State went to double overtime. That was really fun, by the way. Every other game has been a blowout. And that's the big crime here. I don't care as long as they get good games. We haven't gotten good games of the college football playoff so far. And that's all they want. Now, we've gotten a lot of the college football playoff games have been bad. I remember, like, I think back to past years, they're often blowouts. That's just always how it's been. But it's not good football. It's not fun to watch a game that's, one team's got to lead by 4 touchdowns. Like, I don't enjoy that. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think that the games will continue to get better as, the 1 and 2 deep for, your blue bloods of college football start to get thinner because that talent starts to go other places to get money, et cetera. I think we're going to start to see better games. But again, this conference realignment has created such a problem, in terms of trying to seed these teams correctly. Yeah, I don't know.
Would you like to do next the Nathan Awards or talk about the NFL draft order?
Let's just do the awards. And then the awards, I feel like, can lead us into the NFL draft order. All right. So this year, folks, we know you always have your MVP, your offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what the people care about. The people care about the awards that truly mean something to the NFL season. For example, the most exhausting player and team this season goes to Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Could not stay out of the news waves, could not stay off the air. Had how many primetime games this year? And every week it was just Aaron this, Aaron that. Fire this guy, fire that guy. This isn't working, that isn't working. Oh, I'm exhausted. I'm out of breath. I don't know about you. Are you exhausted?
Well, don't you know Aaron's the best thing that's ever happened to the NFL? Aren't you aware, Nathan?
Can you name a more exhausting player and or team for this season?
No, not even close.
A close one would have been Deshaun Watson and the Browns. Got somewhat saved from that, due to the Deshaun Watson injury. However, man, it was a lot. It was exhausting to have to see that in the news every single day, trying to act like this team was relevant when they weren't. But that New York market, that, East Coast bias, if you will, truly came into play.
My phone, my whole setup crashed. So if there was a lot happening for me, I don't know if you saw, everything went black, and I just switched my power cord, and my computer did not like it. Nothing went well just now, but we're alive. We're still going. We didn't lose internet at all.
There we go. Well, Aaron must have a voodoo doll of us, and he
really didn't like us talking shit about him.
Let's turn this off.
Can I add one thing? Because
let's talk about it.
I'm really telling you, Nathan, and I'm telling everyone, I'm not going to watch the whole series. I couldn't even get through one episode, but that's kind of the fun of it. Like, everyone should watch 10 to 15 minutes of the Aaron Rodgers documentary. There's a clip of him on the plane trying to show off how well he knows math, and it's like, I just encourage you to watch really skeptically, and then you get to the scene on the plane, and he's bragging. And think about the people across from him on the plane having to listen to Aaron Rodgers go on and on and on about numbers. And he just keeps going, and then he goes further, and you're like, dude, they don't care. It's just, you have to watch 10 to 15 minutes of Aaron Rodgers documentary. That's all I got through. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I turned it off. But those 10 to 15 minutes are interesting. You're gonna get tired and want to go right to bed, because it's depressing and exhausting, and it goes right in line with the award you just gave out.
Well, let's move on to something a little bit more exciting. This is the best celebration of the year. I could not give this to one guy. I had to give this to the Minnesota Vikings defensive unit. These guys were on fire every single week, whether it was Usher, whether it was Parent Trap, whether it was White Chicks, whether it was Camp Rock. These guys choreograph something every week. And you know what's doper than even choreographing it is the fact that you're getting the turnovers to then go down and celebrate. I thought that was so awesome. Honorable mention, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was getting it this year.
I love it, dude. It's I just like that the NFL has allowed this to happen. They've gotten out of the way and said, let's, and I don't mind that the gun motions are totally out and you got to be really careful there. Totally fine with that. But the them allowing for fun, creative celebrations just makes the sport better. And what the Vikings did with their celebrations, they found a way to make it like PG and acceptable and still entertaining and fun. And like they just really threaded that needle. They're like, hey, HR is not going to get mad at us if we do this and this and this. And they just made the perfect like HR compliant celebrations. And I love it so much.
And they were team celebrations. That's what I also love. It wasn't, oh, I got the interception, I'm going to, do my thing. It was the team doing something, and it was awesome.
Dude, playing football is so hard. Having a long, grueling season, all this stuff, like you need, if I was a head coach, it would be a directive of mine to do something like this. Like, hey, guys, it's a long season. We got to have some fun. This is how we're going to do that. And I would do a lot more of those types of things to promote fun, quite frankly.
Have a celebration period at practice.
Yeah, and just encourage your players. Like, guys, we got to come up. You can do better. Like, I would have fun with it because again, you need. That's why I hate Bill Belichick. I think you need levity. When you got to take everything really seriously, you have to. Like everything's so serious all the time, though. You burn people out. Occasionally, you got to have fun. And if I'm a head coach, I'm like, I'm playing the celebration, but like, guys, certainly you can do better than this, right? Like, and challenging them, making it part of the fun of playing for this NFL team. I think the Vikings did that. And that's a great way that's a great approach to, and an easy, like a layup for your team to have fun week to week in the NFL.
Ivan, what are your hips doing here? He's got the laser pointer. What are we doing here?
That's a funny part of your meeting, dude. Like that's 5 minutes, and it's all it takes to really just bring the energy of the room. And you want to get guys' attention and lock into a meeting. That's how you do it. You start with that. Guys are laughing, having fun. They'll listen to anything you say after that. Totally engaged.
Yep. Love it. Next award is the dopest player of the year. Play period of the year. This doesn't have to do with scoring a touchdown. This has nothing to do with the status of the game. I think that there's no question that this award belongs to Saquon Barkley. And his dead leg, spin move, reverse hurdle. Every time that comes across my feed, I stop and watch. And I am truly blown away every single time. And there's a reason the guy broke the 2,000 yard mark this year. He is playing at an unreal level behind a great offensive line, but you can see how great a running back is when they get in that flow state and they just start feeling and moving. And man, that was just so cool.
He's the best running back in football, right? I think honorable mention to Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs, but Saquon's the clear, obvious best running back in football, right?
Yeah, he's number one. And this goes back to probably like 6 years ago when I was first on the show and I was still at Portland State. There's 3 pillars to me in the run game. You've got your offensive line, their skill and ability. You've got the scheme and you've got the running back. As long as you have 2 of those right, you're going to have an effective running game. If your scheme's not great, but you've got physically talented guys and a great running back, the running back can make plays, hit cutbacks, and the offensive line can create enough movement. If your offensive line isn't great, you can hide it behind a scheme and a great running back. And then if you have a less than talented running back, then if you have a great scheme and a great offensive line, then they can make plays. The Eagles might have it all.
Yeah, I think the weakest part of that, the weakest part of that equation for them is probably the scheme, but it's still great. You know what I mean? Like,
Saquon's moving through, not getting touched until the second level. And part of that is his ability to set up linebackers when he's behind the line of scrimmage. Like there's guys that just have that innate feel of how hard to press the front side, when it's time to cut back, when it's time to stay on the front side. And that's what makes Saquon and guys like Jahmyr Gibbs so special. is they can play with patience, but they play with quickness, and they're never hurried, and they don't play with tremendous speed until they need it. And it's just these sudden bursts and movements, and it's hitting those gaps and hitting the hole, and it's just so special to see. But yeah, that play by Saquon Barkley, hands down the dopest play of the year.
He was made to play running back. I mean, that's just the truth. I can't think of another guy better suited for exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, he just, I don't know, man.
God,
like,
he's handsome
it'd be such
too.
a waste if he was an
God, he's
insurance
so
salesman or
handsome.
something. You know what I mean? Like, what he looks like you.
He doesn't. I mean, if you look like me,
it's
that
not
way,
far off. I mean, take the compliment, Nathan.
God, that guy's handsome. Keeping it fun though, the most memeable is Will Levis. It just seemed like every week this guy just had a classic all-time sports photo of him. No other way to say it, just fucking up. Whether he throws an interception, he's trying to chase down the tackle, somebody drops a pass, he takes a sack. It's just everything always looks so funny with Will Levis in his face. I can't stand mayonnaise. I can't stand the mayonnaise commercial that he's in. They ran it all year. Made me sick to my stomach. But Will Levis, I do think that you gave us a great season in a different way than a quarterback traditionally would, and for that I am grateful.
Reddit and Twitter loved Will Levis.
Yes.
Can I say the mayonnaise thing real quick, man? Like, is that not the most Will Levis product ever? Like, of course, the thing, the big national commercial he's got is fucking mayonnaise. Like, oh, of course, that's the Will. Like, the guy making crazy faces, doing insane fumbles, throwing the worst interception you've seen in your life, back-to-back weeks. Like, you're like, he did it again, but worse? I can't even believe that. Of course, that guy doesn't have, like, awesome Rolex watches or, like, a cool car or even, like, a good product. Like, no offense to Mayo, but, like,
he's got fucking
Mayo
mayonnaise.
is the thing. Like, that's what he hangs his hat on. Hey, shout out to the guy paying his bills, getting the bag. But it's so funny that Will Levis is going to be forever associated with mayonnaise.
And mayonnaise like, and coffee and just being disgusting.
Man, dude. What a thing. What a thing to be known for.
Next award is the what I call the sweet surprise this year. We didn't really know what was going to happen. There wasn't a clear-cut path for this person to have a great season. Bucky Irving. Shout out my University of Oregon Ducks. The season that he had kind of behind closed doors, really impressive. Ended up breaking the 1,000-yard rushing mark, was excellent in the receiving game, and really took that job from Rachaad White as the season went on. I was thoroughly impressed what he was able to do in the Buccaneers offense this year with Baker Mayfield. You had Mike Evans missing time, Chris Godwin out for the year. So much went wrong, and he was such a bright spot for that team. So when I talk about sweet surprise, there's tons of guys who stepped up this year. Honorable mention, Sandstro from the Washington Commanders. I thought he was excellent this year at corner. I gave him flack early for not being ready, but goodness gracious, if he hasn't shown up for that team in some of the biggest moments this year for them. Again, award goes to Bucky, but Sandstro is certainly an honorable mention.
You know, I appreciate you didn't go obvious to like Sam Darnold, who another guy who like didn't have a clear path to have a great year. Bucky Irving,
he was the starter though.
Yeah, but they drafted a guy. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think it was obvious going into week one Sam Darnold's going to do what he did. But Bucky Irving, 4th round pick, rookie, was not the starter to start the year. 10th in rushing this year, 8 touchdowns. And you know, we talk about scheme. Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa, does a great job. And I think it's another name being thrown out there. It's 1 year. I wouldn't hire him as head coach yet. I would give him another year. But kind of like how Ben Johnson got conversations last offseason, we're seeing that happen now with Liam Cohen. And I also think for the sake of the Buccaneers, they've had to hire a new offensive coordinator basically every year because their offensive coordinators keep becoming head coaches and leaving. I'd like to see them not do that, but he's doing a great job. And Bucky Irving, man, another example of you don't need to draft a running back in the first round to get a great value, good back. He's got a great contract that's beneficial to the Buccaneers. 4th round pick who is a starter in this league and really, really awesome.
Yeah, and I also want to mention somebody, I can't remember their name, but they commented on our preseason predictions talking about the Buccaneers. And they specifically said that Brian Callahan was kind of holding the offense back and that Buccaneers fans internally were excited to see him go. Honestly, could have been right.
Dave Canales was the...
Dave Canales, or was it Brian Callahan?
Brian Callahan was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati.
You're right. Dave Canales. Interesting. Liam Cohen seems to have done a great job. I think Callahan's gotten it together late in the season here with Bryce Young. We started to see him make strides, but interesting tidbit. And I want to give whoever that person was credit for kind of seeing those things internally for their team. That was awesome. Next award is a sad award.
These are more fun,
on how you interpret it. This is the most prayers needed. Most prayers needed. Trevor Lawrence.
No,
somebody's got to save this guy. He's in Jacksonville. He's dying. I don't know what's going on. Somebody's got to save Trevor Lawrence. They've got to come in. They've got to give him a new battery pack. They got to give him some juice, and they've got to squeeze everything out of him that they possibly can. You've already paid him. He's making the cash. Doug Peterson got fired. I was calling for that earlier this year, maybe a new play caller. But goodness gracious, he needs some help. Number 2, honorable mention, Garrett Wilson. Get him out of New York. He doesn't want to be there.
Can I read a Patreon question that I think fits here?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So Justin wrote in, said, I may be late with this one, but if you were Santa, what gifts would you give to NFL teams, specifically players, owners, or the commissioner? Your choice. I think it's very clear what Trevor Lawrence needs. The gift he needs from Santa is a damn head coach, man. He just needs some stability. It's been a really tumultuous career for this young guy. And I think he can play, but get him someone like a Ben Johnson. Get him someone to help him reach his potential and give him some stability, because I think he's got it, and they've just let him down every step of the way, his career so far.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville is such an attractive job. And yeah,
good weather too. Like
he needs that Mike McDaniel type guy, somebody to come in and say, hey, you're our guy. We've gotten you beat up over the past couple of years. We haven't been fair to you for, XYZ reasons. Let's make you the best that you can be. And man, he just needs it.
Dude, I think Trevor Lawrence has a really similar skill set to Jerod Goff. And not everyone was confident in Jerod Goff. I remember when Jerod Goff got traded to the Lions. We were kind of like, it's a Matthew Stafford trade, and I guess the Lions got a bridge quarterback. No one thought Jerod Goff was going to become what he became, the franchise quarterback that is there for now the next, foreseeable future. But it was Ben Johnson who said to, Jerod Goff, I believe in you, man. We can make this happen. You also remember he wasn't the original offensive coordinator. They hired that guy, the running back who was the head coach of the Chargers. I'm blanking on the name right now. He was the offensive coordinator first, and then it was Ben Johnson. But Ben Johnson very clearly went to Jerod Goff and said, I believe in you, man. We can make this work. You're my guy. And it's been exactly that. And that's the kind of confidence Jerod Goff has given that Trevor Lawrence needs to also receive in Jacksonville. I think that would be a home run. I want to, so this question from Justin is kind of fun. What gifts would you give NFL teams, players, or the commissioner? Mm-hmm. I want to reread it later, but I wanted to kind of slide that in. That works now. But now that you've heard that, it gives you time in the back of your mind to think of other ways to answer that. Because I think we can, if we want later at the end of the show, to really have fun and bring up like 3 or 4 answers to that question that I think could be fun. But certainly Trevor Lawrence needs a head coach.
Yeah, I'd love that. Next award, kind of staying on that negative side, we've got the Step Back Award. And it's not a nice step back jumper. Mm-hmm. It's a guy who took a step back this year. It goes to none other than CJ Stroud. He got hit with the case of the sophomore slumps.
We saw it coming, man.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple times. It was, he had a great year. Teams are going to scheme and take away things from him. He did a lot of yapping in the offseason. You're totally right. And the podcast with Micah Parsons doing his world tour, talking about top 5 QBs and putting his own self in there. He did suffer injuries, right? Let's be clear. Stephon Diggs, gone. Tank Dell coming off a broken leg. Nico Collins on IR for several weeks. So it wasn't Joe Mixon on IR at a certain point this year. So he missed some of his offensive players. He didn't have a lot of offensive consistency in terms of his weapons available throughout the year. The offensive line took a step back as well. But in terms of his throwing and his accuracy and what we saw from him last year, it just seems like he took a big step backwards.
I really think that the clip of CJ Stroud saying he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL needs to be circulated more. Like I almost want to make a video about it, like because it's such a like I want to do like a retrospective on Houston or something. Be like, look, man, what was this guy talking about? And I think it really shows a lack of creativity on his end because he could have just said, I'll give you my top 5 and I'm gonna exclude myself because that's kind of weird to like do that. So I'll just tell you the top 5 outside of me. Because you don't
Yeah.
want to say you're not a top 5 quarterback. I get that because it sounds like a lack of confidence, a lack of whatever. Like you don't want to say, oh, I'm not top 5. I don't believe in myself.
But you're a rookie, bro.
But
Come
just
on.
find a way to answer that question without doing that. Just give a shout out to 5 other quarterbacks. So look, I'm just going to talk about other quarterbacks because I really respect all the great guys we have in our league. Like he could have so easily dodged that question and answered it in a classy, awesome way, and instead he didn't, and it hurt him. And it was so avoidable.
It was so avoidable. Again, a lot happened offensively that I don't think made it any easier. But he was missing throws. He was not seeing the field the same way. And again, just felt like he took a step back.
Well, let's talk about Nico Collins got hurt. Tank Dell got hurt. Like he lost. He did have Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs got hurt towards ACL.
Oh, that's right.
Tank Dell came back from the broken leg last year, but really wasn't the same until probably well over half the year.
Did Nico Collins get hurt? He was out for a little bit though, right?
Yeah, he was on the IR with
That's
hamstring.
right. That's right. Now, the thing that stands out to me about CJ Stroud this year, and we've talked about a lot, you and me even, like doing too much, playing outside, trying to play outside of the structure more than you should, extending plays more than you should, not just executing at a high level. Like the longer he held on to the football, the worse he was. And for real, like he just had to get the ball out of his hands. It's like, dude, you got to have that rhythm in your clock. You got to play like Jerod Goff or Tom Brady. Get the ball out of your hands. Stop letting plays go on for 6, 7, 8 seconds. Like get it out of your hands. Be decisive. And you extending plays and holding on to the football is not why we pay you. And that's not your game. Stop trying to force that.
Honorable mention for me was an entire team. It was going to be just Derek Carr, but then it became the entire New Orleans Saints organization. I'm not sure how they got worse from where they were last year to where they ended up this year. Goodness gracious. And I know some injuries happen there. NFL can sometimes be a game, the war of attrition, if you will. But I don't know how you stepped any further back from where they were last year. Atrocious.
Could the Saints hire Mike Vrabel? Does that help them? It's not terrible.
It's not a bad hire. Let's be clear. I think Vrabel would be a great hire as a head coach, essentially for any team that needs a head coach right now. But the problem is the cap purgatory that the Saints are in. They don't have a quarterback. Their defense aged quickly. Cam Jordan doesn't have any more years left. You traded away Marshawn Lattimore, like your 2 kind of cornerstone pieces. I think Tyrann Mathieu is still on the back end of that defense. I'm not sure if he's even effective. I could be totally wrong if he's out there still. Outside of Kamara, there's really not a lot out there. Olave needs to probably medically retire. He's had way too many severe concussions. Like, there's not enough talent on the roster to be like, okay, I'm going to go there and turn this thing around. Because not only do you not have the talent, but you don't have the cap space to try and go get any.
Yeah, the Saints, man, are. I mean, they won a Super Bowl, but the years where they borrowed their future financially are really coming back to bite them now, and is what it is.
2 more awards. Last negative one here. We've got the True Colors Award. And this is a guy that showed his true colors throughout the course of the year, Tyreek Hill. And I think that was capitalized by his final interview or his media interview after the game, talking about how he doesn't want to be in Miami anymore and he's too competitive. Just this whole entire season, despite the concussion to Tua and playing with Huntley and playing with Skylar Thompson, he had the captain's badge on. And he needed to be a captain for that team. And he bailed. He bailed on the team mentally, physically. It didn't seem like he was invested in trying to make the best of the situation. And it showed with Tyreek Hill. Last year, everything was all rainbows and sunshines when he's getting all the targets, all the yards. Everything's great. Tua's the best. And then it comes down to a season where things get a little bit rougher offensively, and you're not working to pick guys up and let's keep this thing going. you took it on the selfish side. And when people were asking you about what the positives were this year, you make the remark about, oh, like I had another kid. And like that was a blessing this year. Like, that we weren't asking about your life outside of football. We were trying to find some positives talking about your season with the Dolphins. And you opted to steer so far clear from that and then tell us that you didn't want to be there. Tell us you're too much of a competitor to be on the Dolphins. I didn't see a competitive spirit this year. I saw a guy that gave up. And we saw his true colors.
And what you really said that sticks with me is that's not a captain's answer.
No, not at all.
It's
not
just
a
not.
Captain's answer, and it's not a captain's behavior.
And let's be clear, what I'm referring to, by the way, is after that final game of the year, he said basically like I'm done. I'm out. I'm on out of Miami. Like I'm done with this team. It was a bad year. I'm out. And it's like, hey man, say that privately. No problem.
Right.
But you are the captain's badge. The rules are different for you.
Yeah, and it's not, again, like that last interview was just the icing on the cake, right? It was a full year of being disengaged from the team, obviously and clearly. And then in big moments, dropping the football.
This is a really weird comparison, but I think when you have kids, like when you're a dad, your whole approach to your life has to be different. You have a different level of responsibility. Like everything is framed by the context of you're a dad and you have kids to care about, worry about, and think about. And I think a team captain in the NFL is a similar level of responsibility where every answer to every question, every action, every moment you're conducting yourself anywhere, you're a captain of that football team and a reflection and a front-facing employee, and you have to view it that way. And he clearly either forgot about it or didn't think about it or just doesn't view himself that way. And then he's a captain in title only, and that's kind of shameful.
Yeah, hate to see it. To end this on a positive note, my last award, being the receiver that I am, I wanted to give out an award for what I felt like was the best catch of the year. Now, part of this criteria had to be a touchdown, and you had to display an incredible level of body control. So the first one is Garrett Wilson on Thursday Night Football. It was on the scramble play. Aaron Rodgers throws it to the back of the end zone. Garrett Wilson reaches up, gets 1 foot down, and as he was falling, finds a way to get his left shin in. It was an incredible catch. Big
against
moment.
Houston?
Yeah. And it was live Thursday Night Football, the world watching. It was incredible. Honorable mention, Devontae Smith for the Eagles in Week 8. Jalen Hurts throws one kind of on a line to the back of the end zone. He's fully extended, gets both feet inbounds, and catches the football for a touchdown. 2 incredible catches. Now, this year, it seemed like there were more insane catches than I'd ever seen. So I want to give out a mini award for the best catcher of the year. A guy who I felt like made the most contested, awkward, how did he really catch that football kind of catches. And that is Garrett Wilson again and Terry McLaurin. I don't know how these dudes catch the football sometimes. If you look at best catches of this year, CBS has a clip. It's probably about 30 minutes long. Of those clips, the amount of times that you see Garrett and the amount of times that you see Terry McLaurin making unreal catches is so impressive. Now, again, there's guys like Malik Neighbors and Jamar Chase and Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, right? There's a lot of guys that made incredible catches this year. But in terms of consistently making just like a what on earth? How those two guys this year did that?
Dude, I think that Garrett Wilson, you gave him the award of like pray for me, or he was a runner up, I guess. And by the way, I'm watching that catch against Houston. So
what?
The Devontae Smith catch is sick, but his body's there. Like it's a one-handed catch, but like your body's already in line to make that catch.
He had no room for error.
The Garrett Wilson one-handed touchdown catch is like him. Like he like turns his body away that isn't unnatural, catches the one hand, like grabs it and pulls at it, like backhanded one handed.
We might be talking about different ones.
I'm thinking the one against the Garrett Wilson touchdown the first catch of the year you're talking about against Houston in the back of the end zone where he goes like this. He goes like boom, pulls it in and toe taps. Is that what you're talking about?
No. So that one was from his rookie. Yeah, that one was from his rookie year, from the very first game of the year after Aaron Rodgers had left. Zach Wilson threw him one and he caught it kind of awkward.
Okay.
There's one this year towards the back of the end zone where he is like kind of going to the right. Aaron Rodgers throws it inside to his left. and he makes the adjustment, catches it, gets 1 foot down, and it looks like he didn't get in, but on the replay
I
you see
remember
that
he had like a knee in.
Yeah, or his foot.
Dude, I think we're thinking of the same one
incredible.
against Houston. It's a one-handed catch 2 months ago. Was posted.
Send me the clip. Send me the clip.
I think that's the one. And to me, it's unbelievable. I think it's worth. I'm not trying to derail us. I'm so sorry, but like
no, this is important that we have the right catch in our heads.
Yeah, he goes like bang, one-handed, and it looks like he's out. Dude, I think we're thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, that is. Hold on, we'll see.
Watch this. It's like one-handed. It's like sick. It's like he goes, bink, and then he pulls it in. But like that's unbelievable, and it is way more impressive than the Devontae Smith one-handed catch, which is still legendary. But this is like one hand. He puts it up, like catches it like backhand.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That is the one. Honestly, I can't believe that he one-handed that. That is absurd.
I don't love that it's called inbounds because he gets one toe down like college, and then the same foot touches again. So I think the same foot down twice can count as 2 feet, I guess.
It's because his shin got in. Your shin is your full body.
Shin. I never do that rule until this moment that the shin counts as inbounds.
Everybody's known that the shin is in. The shin is in, baby.
Yeah, receiver would know.
Receiver would know. Anyways, those are the superlatives, the awards this year. If you guys have any comments on that, let us know what you think. I'm especially curious for the pray for me one. Who do you think in the NFL needs a prayer and needs a situation change?
I got one. I know who needs a prayer. Cleveland Browns fans. They need a prayer, dude. Those guys need help. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, they do.
Can I say, dude, what a great segment. I thought that was creative, clever, fun. You notice, guys, I didn't give out any awards. That was all Nathan. That was Nathan's creation. And I thought, you crushed it, my dude. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you. We'll bring these back next year and maybe make some minor adjustments. We'll see how it shakes out.
I love it. Let's not talk about the NFL draft. And I think the best way to introduce this is just telling you the top 10 teams in order. And then we can react to it, talk about it a little bit. I don't think it needs to be a long discussion, but now that the season is completely over, it's locked in who's got the number one pick. And I think 1 through 10 are interesting. And after that, it's like, like the 49ers have the 11th pick. Great for them, but I'm not that excited about that pick. With the number one pick in the draft this year, the Tennessee Titans are the team that's going to be picking so far, assuming they don't trade down. I don't think they're going to trade down. They probably get a quarterback. Number 2, you got the Cleveland Browns. With the 3rd pick, you got the New York Giants. With the 4th pick, the now head coachless New England Patriots. With the 5th pick in the draft, you've got maybe Ben Johnson's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. With the 6th pick, a team that needs a quarterback, but they're going to have a hard time, I think, given their position. You got the Las Vegas Raiders. With the 7th pick, you got the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, questionable head coach team. With the 8th pick, you got Carolina and a team making progress. With the 9th pick, you got the New Orleans Saints. And then with the 10th pick, you've got a team that needs a head coach. We like Joe Brady, the Chicago Bears. You'll notice I tried to not just read 10. I try to throw. It's like I just think listing them all is kind of boring. So let's try to do a little more interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
To me, Tennessee needs a quarterback. They're going to get one. Probably Shitter Sanders. Now, I don't think they're going to fire Brian Callahan, so I don't know how Deion Sanders goes with him. Cleveland's interesting, and I want to read a question on Patreon about this. Sid writes in, says, with the Giants getting the 3rd overall pick and the Titans and Browns ahead of them, any chance the Giants can still get a quarterback? Both of those teams are quarterback needy. I disagree with you, Sid. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are quarterback needy. I mean, I think they are. I don't think they're going to go draft a quarterback, though. I think they are locked in with Deshaun Watson. They're kind of stuck there the way they are. I think the Browns are a prime candidate to trade down. The Raiders need a quarterback. The way to get it is trade up and go get someone. And then if you can draft Deion Sanders' son, maybe bring on Deion Sanders as head coach as well. Although if I'm Deion Sanders, I don't know that I'm in a hurry to leave a good situation in Colorado. There's a lot going on there. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's also if you can get Tennessee convinced they want Cam Ward instead of Deion, instead of Shitter Sanders. So, what do you make of the top 10? What stands out to you? To me, what stands out is Cleveland probably is going to trade down.
Yeah.
What stands out to you at the top 10 here?
Yeah, if I'm Tennessee, do I spend another top pick overall on a quarterback this year? And if so, is that Shedeur Sanders? Is that Cam Ward? Is that another guy who's going to, at some point, surge to the top of draft rankings? Who is it that I feel like is going to reset my franchise? Or do I go the bridge quarterback route and find a way to get myself depth in other places on the football team?
I got to answer this. I'm so sorry. It would
let me know.
It'd be a huge mistake to not draft a quarterback. So they got Will Levis, who was the second round pick, and I think the first pick, the second round, something like that.
Yep.
But Brian Callahan, I think, can coach. I think he's a really solid coach. Will Levis has made him look like a dog shit coach, but I think with a good quarterback, he can make it work. Like he made Jake Browning look great in Cincinnati, for example. I think what needs to happen in Tennessee is you got to go get the quarterback Brian Callahan wants. I think he probably wants Cameron Ward, to be totally honest. I think that's the guy I would draft if I were him. And then it leaves an opening for the Raiders to trade up to 2, get Deion and Shedeur Sanders. But I think Tennessee is going to draft Cameron Ward, and I think they should go get the quarterback Brian Callahan wants. What you can't do is go get a bridge quarterback, a Kirk Cousins or whatever, which actually Kirk in Tennessee, not a terrible fit. Actually, even with Cam Ward, I think Kirk in Tennessee is a great idea because there's no rush to play Cameron Ward immediately. You got a solid veteran who can play a little bit. It's going to help make your head coach look better. I like that idea. So I think a bridge quarterback is going to happen either way in Tennessee to get someone to start week 1 in case the rookie isn't ready. But what you can't do is get a bridge quarterback and have no backup plan because you're probably never going to be in a position like this again. You just can't pass up on getting, carte blanche to draft whatever quarterback you want. That opportunity is such a rare thing in the NFL. You can't pass up on getting a quarterback number 1 overall. You just can't.
Man, in so many ways, I agree with that.
Are you hesitant because of Mariota and Jake Locker being first round picks, top 10 picks that didn't work out?
I'm just not totally confident in any of the quarterbacks. Because if you take somebody number 1 overall in today's NFL, they have to start immediately. There's no waiting. That's how the game works.
They don't.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
No.
If you draft a quarterback number 1 overall in the NFL right now, the expectation is that they play immediately.
But that's wrong. The expectation, what needs to happen is they need to be good. I don't care how that works out.
That's what you want, but that's not what the NFL does anymore.
But
you draft a guy and you
fuck all the preconceived notions
immediately.
I think you get Kirk Cousins and Cameron Ward, and whoever's better week 1 starts. And like what the Patriots did with Drake May was perfect. I thought, like, let him sit for a little bit.
They drafted 5th overall, and they weren't going to play him 3rd. Sorry, and they didn't want to play him, but then they had to.
But I just don't. I don't think that 2 picks earlier you have to start the guy week 1. Ideally, great, but I just don't. I think what matters is 5 years from now is whatever quarterback that gets drafted number 1 overall, is he good? However you get to that point, I don't care what that looks like. Whatever you got to do to make sure that 5 years from now, this guy's your locked in, awesome franchise quarterback. That's what's got to happen. I think the way to do that is get Kirk Cousins.
So then that, to me, that would make sense if you had a guy like Aaron Rodgers, right? When you drafted Jordan Love, Aaron was still excellent. You don't have anybody that's already there in the waiting to mentor this guy. If you bring in Kirk Cousins, that's expensive. Now you can't get more weapons around this rookie quarterback when
you gave him a 2-year deal.
Inevitably leaves. Yeah, 2-year deal. Quarterback plays 1 more year, and now all of a sudden he wants to restructure. And now you got to pay him early.
I think you could bring in Kirk, restructure his contract. I mean, I think that the solution, anything's possible, personally, and I think that's what I would do with Tennessee. I don't mean to argue with you. That's what I would do.
No, that's why we're here. That's why we're here, baby.
To do first take. I hate it. I don't like the arguing.
No, we've got different viewpoints. I don't think that any of these quarterbacks solves Tennessee's problems.
See,
right now.
I strongly disagree with you about Cameron Ward specifically. I think he is I even think, like, remember what we talked about earlier in the show when I said, hey, Josh Allen played at Wyoming and Patrick Mahomes played at Texas Tech. Like, they didn't play for the top programs, so they always said Cameron Ward played at Washington State and Miami. He had to learn how to win. He's been in close games for years, grinding it out. Say what you want about Cameron Ward. I know Miami didn't finish the way you wanted, didn't make a playoff game. They won a lot of games they shouldn't have won because Cameron Ward made plays in the 4th quarter to get them in positions to win. It happened almost every week in Miami.
No doubt.
That dude has it. He's got incredible talent. He plays like he's got this ability to extend plays and make stuff happen outside of structure. He is absolutely the answer to the problem in Tennessee, I think, personally. I
Okay, so
think he's
number one pick
raw.
overall needs to be Cam Ward.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm way more confident in Cameron Ward than Shadur Sanders. I'm a huge, I know I'm a fan. I also am a big believer, and I'm going to put my name, stamp that now. He's the answer. I don't know where he's going to go. I think Tennessee fits really well too, because think about the conversation around him. You've got, Houston, Jacksonville, and Indy. Houston's solid. They got CJ Stroud, but nothing. That's not like there's some terrifying demon that's dominating the AFC South. Like, you can walk in there with an average team and put up a couple wins and fight, and in a couple of years, Tennessee could be really good. That's a great situation to walk into. The Raiders, I don't want to play against Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix and Justin Herbert every single year with all three have great coaches. That division's a trap. Tennessee is a great situation to go to. It's there's no state income tax. It's Nashville's a great place to live, fairly moderate weather. You're going to throw the football, no problem. The AFC South, everything about Tennessee is a really attractive, good situation. And I think it fits Cameron Ward perfectly.
All right. I don't agree and I don't disagree. I'm just interested to see what happens. Call me curious.
Sure.
Color me curious.
Do you think, like, who else is in the conversation at quarterback, right? I think Shadur Sanders, Cameron Ward, Jackson Dart probably is out there.
I still think Jackson Dart's going to be the best quarterback out of this class. I feel pretty confident in that.
Quinn Ewers, is he a second round pick? Is he even going to the NFL after this year?
It seems like he's going to stay. Somebody's going to pay him a lot of money to go be their quarterback. I'm not sure who.
You think he's going to transfer, though, to get away from Arch Manning?
Yeah, I think he's going to transfer.
Even if they win the national title?
Man, just the way they played against Arizona State and the interception that he had in the big moment, and they couldn't quite close it out. And even on that 4th and 12, when they scored, that ball was dropped. Now, not his fault, right? But they should not have won that game. They should not have won that game. Anyways, just to get back on topic, I'm not sure what he's going to do.
Funniest idea. May I say, I'm so sorry. I think the funniest idea, Quinn Ewers started his career on a team that's going to need a quarterback next year.
Ohio State, you fucker.
And, dude, I would kill to see. And remember, part of the story of Quinn Ewers playing Ohio State is he played there before. So him playing his old team and his old coach in a college football playoff game is hilarious. And I think Will Howard's going to leave. They're going to need someone. I know they got Julian Sayin or whatever. I think
I'm rocking with Julian Sayin, dog.
What about Quinn Ewers in Oregon next year? What about Oregon Ducks quarterback Quinn Ewers?
Dante Moore's the guy.
Sure, that's fair. But I don't know, man.
We had a 5-star transfer out because
Georgia.
He transferred in, or he early enrolled, went to the practices, saw DJ Moore.
Was like, nah.
I was like, oh shit, sorry. I think I said DJ Moore on accident. Yeah, saw Dante Moore and he was like, all right, never mind.
You said Dante Moore, dude. What about Quinn Ewers to Georgia?
That to me makes more sense.
It's a great fit.
And Georgia has desperately needed a quarterback. Now, granted, Lab McConkey and Brock Bowers both went for over $1,000 this year. You take away that sort of production, it's going to be harder for your quarterback. Give Carson Beck the out all you want, but that was going to be difficult for any quarterback. Again, and even the year previous, right? You had guys like George Pickens on the team. You had George Pickens, Lad McConkey, and Brock Bowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what. Who was it before him? Drafted by the Rams, Stetson Bennett. That's who he had to throw to. That feels pretty good. Anyways, yeah, Georgia would be a place that makes sense.
It's a perfect fit. I mean, they need each other. Like,
or hear me out, Michigan. Michigan. They were honestly a competent quarterback away from being a very good team in the Big Ten. Their defense was no joke this year.
Yeah, no, that's not bad. Honestly, I'm very open to that idea.
Cleveland. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't draft a quarterback because you're paying a guy way too much money. Maybe you try and find a guy in the 3rd round, but they've had so many quarterbacks on their roster the past couple of years, and I know that that's their thing. They have way too many starting quarterbacks, but draft out or trade down, get yourself some offensive line depth, and get yourself a running back. Nick Chubb got injured again at the end of the year. It appears that injury has kind of ended his career in its entirety. You need to get yourself a new running back. That's the staple in the Kevin Stefanski system. You got to get some offensive line depth back. and the defense is going to be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they just fired their offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey in Cleveland, and
not Ken Dorsey's fault.
Yeah,
But Ken
it's
Dorsey
tough.
also got fired in Buffalo, so
Yeah, he played for the Browns back in the day, actually. Or he was a Miami quarterback, and then Miami Hurricanes, and then Cleveland. What else about the top 10? I look around the top 10 of the draft. I think the Raiders should trade up with Cleveland. They got Fitz. I think they're the team that is the most desperately needing to trade up. Like New Orleans, maybe the Raiders. Like I don't know who else is a candidate to move up other than the Raiders to that spot with Cleveland, to be honest. And I'll say this as a guy, I'm really early talking to some people around the football world. Like it's not a great draft. It really isn't. Like there's like Seattle. I was talking about this last night with Tommy. Tommy. I should probably mute his name. Damn it. Tommy last night was asking about Seattle, and like they've got the 18th pick, and I don't know they're going to find anything they love at the 18th pick in Seattle. To personally, like I just don't think after the top 10 picks, it's kind of a lot of third round availability in the first round. To be honest, like from a talent standpoint, it's just kind of a thin, weak draft this year.
I'll need to take a deeper look at what the draft boards look like. But if I'm Seattle, I need another slot receiver. I'm sorry, not another slot receiver. I need offensive line is what I need. I need to get myself a left guard and I need to get myself a right tackle. And that's what I need if I'm Seattle. I need to give Geno Smith more time if we're going to continue to have him back there. They already fired Ryan Grubb. I don't want to say I was early to that, but it was clear that McDonald was working. Hey, he's cleaning shop in there too. He is letting guys go. He's making the right moves. That's why I know he's the guy. Yeah, you're right. Maybe this draft doesn't have a whole ton, but I don't think I've spent enough time with it. What's interesting to me is what Carolina does now. Because 2 months ago, it looked like they needed to draft a quarterback again. But the way Bryce Young kind of closed this year, you're like, oh, okay, he's shown us something that he's capable. So now Chuba Hubbard had an excellent season at running back. Do you need to go draft a wide receiver? You got rid of Deontay Johnson, who you thought was going to come in and make an impact. Do you try and get to Tyrone McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, Evan Stewart from the University of Oregon? I don't think Travis Hunter is still going to be there at that point. But what do the Carolina Panthers do, and how quickly can they get things turned around? Because their division isn't necessarily that great either in the NFC, right? Yeah, that's an interesting spot to me as well.
Two players stand out to me in the draft that I think are difference makers that I want to see where they go. Travis Hunter, obviously out of Colorado, wide receiver, corner, does whatever he wants, basically. He's really noteworthy. Malachi Starks is a great safety. I wasn't going to talk about him, but he's awesome. And then to me, though, Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, is like...
That dude is unbelievable.
He's like Travis Kelce in the making.
Watching him against Oregon, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And he did it again in the college football playoff. This guy, he's for real.
I don't know if Cincinnati, San Francisco, Chicago, like there's a lot of... So I think he's a top 10 pick. I don't think he falls to like a Seattle. But like New England could get him and love him. The Giants could draft him and love him. I think the Giants need a quarterback though. Jacksonville could draft him and love him. Like there's a lot of teams. He's a top 10 pick because I don't think he gets like New England, Jacksonville, Carolina, New Orleans, Chicago. Like he doesn't get the Jets. Like he doesn't get past any of those teams. They all want him. Any one of those is going to be happy to have him. And I think personally, this is a weird. Please don't hate me for this. I think I'd rather have. I just think. I'm more certain Tyler Warren's going to hit than I am with Travis Hunter. I know it's a weird thing to say. I know Travis Hunter is amazing. He's a little small. He's a little... I just don't know. I have a lot of questions about him. Not many, but I think I'm more sure that Warren's going to hit than I am about Travis Hunter, as weird as that is.
Yeah, I think with Travis Hunter comes the baggage of who he is as an individual, and not baggage in a bad way, but he's a big personality. He's got brand deals.
It's a lot to live up to, though.
Plays right, and he wants to play both sides of the football. So the situation that he goes to will be, I think, have a heavy influence on how successful he is. Right. Like,
Yeah.
does he go to a defensive focused team and they force him to play corner? Does he go to an offensive led team and they force him to play wide receiver? Does he, go somewhere there and they actually allow him to play both sides of the football? It's hard to say. And I think that uncertainty makes us more uncertain about whether or not he is going to hit. Because I think whatever one he decides to focus on, it's clear that he's going to have success there. Now, to what degree, nobody knows. If you're a starting corner in the NFL, you're one of the best corners in the world, regardless, right?
Yeah.
Just what does that look like? What does an NFL Travis Hunter look like? And because we don't know that, I think it makes it hard to equate any level of success.
I'd love to see Denver draft Tez Johnson in the second round. I think it'd be kind of cool. Pair him up with Bo Nix again.
That would be interesting. I'm not sure who's running slot right now in Denver. But yeah, it'd be interesting. You'd have Cortland Sutton, you'd have Troy Franklin, you'd have Marvin Mims, who's had a great year. Pair that up with Tez Johnson. I think that'd be interesting.
What about Emeka Egbuka? How good is he?
I'm not as sold as him as the other Ohio State wide receivers that they've had in the past couple of years between Wilson, Olave, Harrison Jr., etc. Terry McLaurin, but he's elite. I think he's on par. I don't know how to say it. He's a bigger body than Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he kind of does a similar thing to Jackson Smith and Jigba, if that makes sense. And I know that Emeka kind of got overshadowed towards the back half of this year with, the greatness that is Jeremiah Smith. But, I mean, I'd take him.
Could you pair him with Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, you could pair him with Garrett Wilson, but you've already got Devontae Adams out there too.
Yeah.
Who
would you pair him with?
Too much. I'd pair him with a traditional big body wide receiver. So to me, if T. Higgins is going to take a contract somewhere, I think that the Bengals could probably go out and get him. I know that they probably need to fix things on defense, and that's where they need to focus. But the Bengals have what pick? They are, let's see here. They're 17. I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be available at 17. Yeah. That'd be interesting. But somebody like Arizona could be like, oh, let's get Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. And then that makes our wide receiving room better. But I think somewhere like Cincinnati, he's going to go replace a wide receiver. Miami would be interesting. If Tyreek Hill does walk, then you've got him and Jalen Waddle. Chicago would be interesting, right? I think that they'll probably move on from Keenan Allen here. And then you slot in Emeka Egbuka, and then you've got Egbuka, Rome, and DJ Moore. That'd be a really good core. Yeah.
You know who I love? And I think he reminds me of a lot of Mike Evans, actually.
Who?
T-Mac. Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona.
Yeah.
Big, strong, not the fastest guy in the world, but he's just going to win deep balls and jump balls anyway. Yeah. Like I don't know if you know this, but yeah, I'm sure you do. Mike Evans isn't blowing people away with Tyreek Hill speed, but he gets so deep constantly and makes big catches downfield. And I think Teteroa McMillan is a really safe pick that I think is going to land.
He's a little spindlier than I'd like, and I'd imagine once he gets in the NFL, he'll put on a little bit more size. He's got now he's not a Derrick Henry body type, but he's got Derrick Henry type strides where you don't realize how much turf he's actually eating when he's running. You're like, oh my god, this guy's burning right now.
Yeah. Try to catch up to him.
He to me, he's a better receiver than Travis Hunter. The thing I love about Teteroa McMillan is strong hands at the point of contact and his body control. Like body control and timing of when you jump and when you flash your hands. Like all of those things are so important. And I think Teteroa's got a natural instinct about it. He just does it. He's not drilling it. I mean, I'm sure he's drilling it and practicing it, but he's just got a natural ability to high point the football, low point the football, just wherever the best opportunity is for him to catch the football. He knows how to get his body there. And that's what makes him so unique.
He's a number one receiver. And I don't,
yes,
there's a lot of places he could go, but I think, I don't think he'll fall this far. Like Pittsburgh would be a perfect fit for him there. Personally, like I think he fills a need there. And I think a lot of other places they could take him earlier, but like I look at Indianapolis, right? Who could use him? They've already got, I'm blanking on the name right now, the kid out of USC, Michael
Michael
Pittman Jr.
Pittman.
And they're similar. Like they had a really similar skill set. So I don't know that.
And you just drafted A.D. Mitchell last year.
Yeah, I don't. So I don't
have they don't have a receiver problem, and
no,
they've got Josh Downs. They have a quarterback problem.
I look at the draft. Like Chicago doesn't have a receiver problem. Carolina maybe would take T-Mac, but they got Xavier Legette. Like I just think it's possible he falls.
Legette is not great,
but I think maybe he falls out of need, and I don't know if he falls all the way to. I don't know if he makes it to Carolina at 8, right? But someone's going to find T-Mac and really love him. Whether maybe New England. New England's going to have a decision between T-Mac or Travis Hunter. I think probably.
Yeah.
I think Cleveland takes Travis Hunter. But I don't think Cleveland drafts it too. I mean, let's end the draft conversation with this. It's really important to say this. I'm seeing a lot of conversation today. The Giants have to take Shedeur Sanders at number 3 overall. And I'm like, guys,
No, you don't.
You're not going to get him. You got to trade up with Cleveland, in my opinion, to just because I think the Raiders are going to make a great offer to go get a quarterback. And that's what I would do if I was the Raiders. And the Raiders are going to offer more out of desperation to Cleveland than the Giants will. I just think it's good. There's no way the Giants are going to offer very much to move up one spot. They're too disciplined and regimented and weird, and they don't seem to have vision for what that looks like. Someone's going to steal a quarterback from the Giants, and they're going to get stuck with like Jackson Dart or someone like that.
And that wouldn't be stuck with. I think Jackson Dart would crush it in New York. I think he would.
Maybe. I just really can't say enough. Like the Giants should not feel safe like they're guaranteed to get the quarterback they want at 3. You're not high enough in the draft. You're not number 1, and someone's going to leapfrog you with Cleveland because Cleveland has no business drafting number 2 overall. They're going to trade down to 6 or whatever. So the Giants got to have a sense of urgency that I'm not sensing from the media, like the articles I'm reading in New York.
Yeah, you know what I had a big miss on when I was talking about the Seahawks? They desperately need somebody on that defensive front so badly, and I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah,
for the Seattle Seahawks, but they seriously need somebody on that defensive front. Yeah, man, it sucks that they missed the playoffs at 10-7 this year, but that division was not great.
Yeah, there's a couple good edge rushers. They're not going to get Mason Graham, the defensive tackle. I think edge is what they need to. And the edge, Mikael Williams out of Georgia, Nick Scorton, James Pierce.
I'd like to see Jacksonville Walker get somebody on that D line to pair with Hines Allen. Armstead, I think, got injured pretty bad this year.
Eric Armstead, he's in Indy, I think.
Oh, actually. He's in Indy.
Yeah.
Who's in Jacksonville? Who's the nose tackle?
Josh Allen, Travon Walker. Yeah.
Was it DeForest Buckner?
DeForest Buckner.
It is Eric Armstead.
Is it? Oh, DeForest Buckner is in Indy. That's what I'm thinking. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm fascinated by.
Now I'm sitting here doing way too much looking at and researching. Like I'm excited for our official NFL draft breakdown thoughts episodes. Right now, it's kind of everything's in a pipe dream. Like, oh, this would work. This would be cool. This would be. But to like sit down and really, figure out what's going to work.
No, I think we can end it there too, because I don't think I've done enough research to say everything I want to say about this draft. But certainly the top 10 is interesting. And I think the point I want to leave again is that the Giants aren't safe. The Giants need to have a sense of urgency if they want to get the quarterback they want, because I think someone's going to leapfrog them to 2. And I would be making offers to Cleveland right now to trade up if I was the Giants, and do it early before they don't have other offers out there. Like if you offer now, maybe they take it early before they get better offers from the Raiders or from New Orleans, whoever else. But I think the Raiders are the prime candidate because New England doesn't need a quarterback. Jacksonville doesn't need a quarterback. The Giants, Tennessee, and Raiders all are the 3 teams that need a quarterback the most right now.
Did you see the Antonio Pierce interview today?
No. What did he say?
And they were asking him if he's still the head coach, and he's like, "Yeah, they haven't told me anything different," which is an interesting response. Do you think that the Raiders could be kind of in secret right now negotiating with Deion Sanders, and it's not until Deion gets the green light to be hired that they'll move on from Antonio Pierce? That would be the domino to fall, because if they hire Deion Sanders, then they'll make the aggressive trade up so that they can draft Shedeur. You see what I'm saying?
But what if Tennessee drafts him?
For now.
There's a lot of the air, you know. It's really complicated.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to break it down.
Yeah, but I do think Raiders and Dion and Shadur are great. That's a great fit. I think they fit better with the Raiders than they do Tennessee, personally. I think Cameron Ward fits Tennessee really well. I don't think Shadur Sanders fits the Raiders in Vegas really well. And I feel really strongly about that. And if I'm the Raiders, I'm already trying to trade up to 2 at Cleveland and secure that future.
This might be an easy question. What do the Niners do? I guess not an easy question, but Trent Williams might retire. Do you go offensive line?
You have to get a tackle personally, because you got to plan for that future. Remember, I think he had a kid die too recently. Trent Williams. I think I remember talking about that. It's like, it's not a guarantee he doesn't retire in the next couple weeks. Trent Williams.
And then follow that up with, do you pay Brock Purdy? And if so, how much?
No, I pay him a moderate contract, and I sit him down, have a very frank conversation. Look, you're good because you got help around you. You're not worth $200 million. And if you want that money, we're going to find someone else. Love you, respect you.
Do you draft another quarterback? Do you draft another running back, knowing that McCaffrey may have, kind of played himself out of his ability given those Achilles injuries?
I would draft Ashton Genty if he's there. I think he might be at 11.
Nah, Ashton Genty.
Who else is going to draft him? New Orleans, Carolina, Jets.
Jacksonville would draft Ashton Genty.
I would rather have the tight end Warren at a Penn State if I'm Jacksonville.
But you've already got Evan Ingram.
Ben Johnson, actually. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Ben Johnson loves a good running back. No, that's fair. That makes sense. Actually.
And then you got Ashton and Travis.
I also, though, I personally, Zach Schaumler, I hate drafting running backs in the top 10. I draft, again, like I look at Bucky Irving, a 4th round pick
Gibbs
with 1,000 yards rushing. But he's the exception. And I don't think Ashton Genty is Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not. Physically, talent-wise, catching the ball. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs is special. That makes sense. Jahmyr Gibbs and Ashton Genty are not the same. And I don't draft a traditional running back like Ashton Genty in the first round. But I'm an extreme example. Like, I'm really conservative, and I think I can find running backs in the 3rd or 4th round, like Bucky Irving, and succeed that way. I'm not paying them. They're not worth it. They run out of tire tread too fast, and I think you can get way more for your money with the 4th or 5th round pick if you're the 4th or 5th overall pick if you're Jacksonville.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that's a fine point on it, though.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, actually, I think one more thing about this. We kind of hit on this with San Francisco. For real, I'm telling Brock Purdy, like, you're not getting that money. Like, love you. We want you to discount, and feel free to go test the open market. You're not going to get a better offer, because I cannot think of a team that's going to give Brock Purdy the money he wants. It's not out there. There's not a single NFL team that's going to pay him $200 million.
No. If he had won the Super Bowl, that would have been different.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you say, dude, I've got a Super Bowl ring. You actually owe me the money. But because they didn't win, and now it's like, but now you've kind of been injured a couple times, because he got injured at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Something in the high 30s sounds great. I know that the market's moved up, so it's probably going to be in the 40s. But
dude, that's a lot. But for Brock.
If the number starts with a 5, there's no way.
If the number is anything more than 35 a year,
42 is the max I'm paying. 42 is the max.
I'm not doing it. I can get Kirk Cousins for that much, and he's going to run Kyle Shanahan's system better.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. I really believe that. I'd rather have Kirk at 42 than Brock Purdy. Straight up.
I'm on the fence about that one.
Remember, he played for Kyle in Washington, and they wanted that for a long time.
Yeah, you like that.
Yeah, I do like that. I know the reference, though. I'm just telling you, man, like, the money Brock Purdy wants, he's got to realize there is not a single other NFL team that's going to offer you a ton of money.
No.
Like, take the deal or leave it. The 49ers have all of the control and all of the leverage in that negotiation. And if Brock Purdy doesn't like the offer, go shop around. You're not going to find anything better.
You know, with the Dolphins, and I think that this is Mike McDaniel's fault, I felt the same way about Tua. I think if Tua went to the open market, I don't think people would have paid him that much money.
No, not at all.
But for some reason, Greer and McDaniels decided paying him What is he making now? 50 some odd a year?
Something like that, yeah.
53? Like, why?
Yeah. Yeah, it's let's now talk about the NFL playoffs. I would kind of like to start with a prediction. I feel really strongly that representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, we're either going to see Kansas City or Buffalo. I know the Ravens are in the mix. They're interesting. They're going to challenge for that spot. But to me, it's Buffalo or Kansas City. One of those two teams going to make it through to the Super Bowl. I don't know that they're going to win, but I think those are the favorites and should be out of the AFC. Is there anything that stands out to you in the playoffs that you feel really strongly about?
Yeah, in the playoffs as a whole, I feel strongly about the Minnesota Vikings making it to the NFC Championship. Whether they win remains to be seen. I have them matched up against Philly, but I do think that in that third matchup with the Lions, again, provided the stars align, I've got the Bucks beating Washington, and I've got the Philly beating Green Bay, which could be really interesting, actually. Both quarterbacks aren't super healthy. Could be kind of a funny one. But at the end of the day, again, that third matchup with Detroit, first game coming down to the wire, second game kind of getting away from Minnesota. You've got third matchup, your second matchup in Detroit. I think it could be really interesting.
The way that would work, Lions would play the number 5 seed. That they'd play the lowest seed remaining. Lions would play the Vikings for the second time in Detroit in 3 weeks, and that's not nothing, man. We talked about it a lot earlier in the show, but I think a reframing of the situation for Sam Darnold is all it's really going to take. I know that defense, they're going to get a lot of praise today, the Lions defense, how they played against Minnesota. I don't think that was a great performance by the Lions defense. That was a Vikings offense missing opportunities. There were so many moments where a team that's executing could have easily, taken it to and beat Detroit week 18. So I too agree that there's an interesting, I'm not as sure as you are, but there's an interesting game to be had between Detroit and Minnesota, and certainly Minnesota could win.
Yeah, I just think that Sam Darnold, once he gets that first playoff win under his belt against the Rams have been such a Jekyll and Hyde team. And the problem for the for the Vikings in this matchup is Brian Flores likes to send pressure. It's hard to blitz Matt Stafford. He's seen so much, and he's got two outlets in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp to go with the football, right? So it's going to be tougher to create that disguise that Brian Flores is known for, which is why I think the Rams were able to kind of edge them out earlier this year. But at the end of the day, I think that Minnesota has gotten better. I think Sam Darnold's really settled in. If he gets that first playoff win under his belt, I have extreme confidence that going into Detroit for that third time in that matchup, that he's just going to get it done. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season.
Another interesting possibility, though, is if Philly and Tampa win this weekend and the Rams beat Minnesota, we would get Matthew Stafford, another playoff game back in Detroit. And that would be fun. I think that'd be an easy is maybe the wrong word there, but a certain victory for the Lions.
They want the Rams to win bad. They want the Rams to win bad.
Yeah. The Rams have a 32, 31, 30th, 29, 28, 27, 26th best defense in football. So they're not exactly...
No.
I think Sam can put up some numbers against that Rams defense, man. And
I think so. And that game that the Rams won earlier this year, it was a Thursday night football game, if I remember correctly. So, anything can kind of happen on Thursday night football. Things can get weird. You're traveling, prep, all that stuff. So I think Minnesota is going to come out hungry. They're going to come out ready to rock.
Let's talk about every game happening this weekend. So, the college games are happening Thursday and Friday. They're getting out of the way of the NFL. NFL playoffs are Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, I've got the Chargers playing at Houston. Who do you think wins that game?
I think Chargers win that handily. I think that Houston kind of scraped in by the nature of their division and not having a team that's as strong as they want it to be. Because the Chargers have such a great defense, I think that's going to give them the edge. I know that the Texans defense has played relatively well this year, and I think actually very well at some parts, kind of saving that offense. But this Chargers team has such a belief right now. Quentin Johnson having 13 receptions for 186 yards. Ladd McConkey over 1,000 yards. They're getting just enough out of the run game with J.K. Dobbins right now. I just feel really, really good about this Harbaugh coach team. going out there and winning a playoff game. I think that he's probably going to have an edge on DeMeco Ryans in terms of, preparation for these sort of playoff games. Like Jim Harbaugh's a guy who's been in the NFL. He's been to Super Bowls. And I just think that he's going to put together the best possible game plan. And Justin Herbert, not statistically having one of his best years, but in terms of playing the quarterback position, having one of his best years. And he's playing better than CJ Stroud right now.
Yeah, I feel really confident the Chargers win too. Stroud's been messy. I think it's a different game with a healthy Tank Dell and a healthy Stephon Diggs, but in their absence, CJ Stroud's not played very well. He's been pressing, he's been forcing throws that aren't there, holding onto the ball too long. I think we're going to see more of that in this playoff game. Nothing against Houston. I'd love to see them win, but I just don't think they're going to.
Yeah, and I think, again, just in terms of positive momentum, not that the Texans have negative momentum right now, let's be real, but the Chargers have just such great positive momentum rolling, it's hard to bet against.
Lamar Jackson threw for 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions this year.
Wow.
I know that the maybe arguably his worst game of the year was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they lost a game where
the kicking game.
The Steelers kicked 6 field goals and beat them, right? And that's, by the way, so he had 45 total touchdowns because he ran for 4 as well. Man, I think the Ravens kicked the shit out of the Steelers on Saturday at 5 o'clock on Prime.
I think that they are so stoked for this matchup. Like, we get to whoop your ass at home again. Bring it on.
Yeah. Good news. It's going to look great. It's on Prime Video Saturday night. I love watching games on Amazon. It's awesome, dude. But I think we're in agreement. I assume that Ravens are going to crush them.
Yep. Won't be close.
Denver plays at Buffalo. Another, I think, pretty one-sided outcome, in my opinion. I think Buffalo comfortably beats Denver. No knock on Denver, but I'm just glad they're in this position, personally. I know that's kind of no shot at Denver. I'm just really stoked to make a playoff game, and I think that's where their story ends. And that's a huge victory. Year 1 of the rookie quarterback, year 2 with Sean Payton. That's the story to me is, oh my gosh, they made it. But I think they're going to get, a pretty handily, a comfortable loss to a team that I think is a favorite to win the Super Bowl, Buffalo. They
beat the 15-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos did.
Sure.
Full strength, no, not really. Here's the deal. I think the Broncos are playing with an unconscious belief right now. And despite, the Chiefs not really playing any of their starters whatsoever, when you go out on a high like that to close your season, the confidence that it gives you, especially after dropping your last 2 in close fashion to a division rival in the Chargers and then to the Bengals, who are fighting for everything. To me, the Bengals are a slightly scarier team than the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. Obviously, Cincinnati's not in the playoffs, but don't be surprised if this game is closer than you think. And honestly, don't be surprised if Denver wins this game. Denver has a good enough defense. Pat Surtain is up for Defensive Player of the Year. This is a no-joke team, and it's a team that doesn't have any battle scars yet. But you also have a rookie quarterback who's played in a lot of big games in his careers, whether that was SEC games, whether that was, the Pac-12 championship, et cetera, right? Like, Bo Nix is an experienced guy. I don't think that the lights are going to be too bright. He's not going to be scared to play, outside and at high mark. I really think that the Broncos have more of a chance than people are giving them here.
It would be what a crushing defeat if Buffalo lost to Denver. I mean, man, that would be, to not even get to a point where you're going to run into Kansas City, it would be it would be awful, man. It really would be. It would be a huge, huge loss for them.
Yeah, it would be a massive loss. And, if we're being honest right now, this, defense is not very great for the Buffalo Bills this year. And I just think that the way that Sean Payton throws the football around, and if there's a weakness right now, it's probably that back end on the defense that typically plays well, but they play a lot of zone. Bo Nix is going to carve up a zone. And I'm not saying it's because he's, the best quarterback in the league, but Sean Payton is going to set him up with just easy throw after easy throw. Somebody's going to get frustrated. Somebody's going to or somebody's going to gamble. There's going to be a few more big plays than you think.
Another storyline, though, this secondary in Denver against Khalil Shakur, Amari Cooper, and Keon Coleman, the receiving core in Buffalo, it's possible it is an uglier win than I'm giving credit to Buffalo for, just because the nature of Denver's defense And I think Josh Allen's going to have to play superhero to win this game. I think that's possible. It could also be a James Cook day. It could be a James Cook 100 yards rushing,
we
3
don't know.
touchdowns type game.
We're going to have to see what Joe Brady dials up.
Yeah, I guess you're right, though. This game is more interesting than I gave it credit for.
Yeah.
Eagles, Packers. Eagles host the Packers. Now, Christian Watson, the Packers' young rookie receiver, out for the year with a knee injury, needs surgery. Man, I love the Packers. I think they're awesome. Eagles are stacked. Like, they're loaded everywhere, man. And I really think that Philly wins and Green Bay's going to kind of have to regroup and look towards next year. What do you make of that thought?
It depends on what quarterbacks play. Both aren't necessarily locks to play in this matchup. Jalen Hurts in concussion protocol. I can't remember the injury that Jordan Love has, but obviously those are going to be big question marks. And if they do play, what is that level of health? But I think you're right. I think Philly's roster is just too deep. The run game that Green Bay is going to really need to rely on is going to be absolutely taken away. And I think that if Philly does take away that run game, then they're going to have no problems just walking over this team. There's no Jair Alexander. He's not going to be playing. High likelihood that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith eat. I'm sorry, is Devontae Smith actually injured?
Let's find out. I don't think so.
Regardless, I think Philly wins this football game.
Devontae Smith is questionable with I don't know. I can't tell what the injury is. Questionable with a wrist injury. Didn't play. He didn't play week 18, but was he ever going to play week 18? I don't know I don't know how real that is, because I don't know. You play the playoff game.
Yeah,
you sit out against the Giants. It makes sense.
He'll find a way to play.
Yeah, I think the game of the weekend, probably Sunday Night Football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers host the Washington Commanders. This is a really fun, really interesting game. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to come down to the wire. Look, Denver Bills is interesting for certain reasons. I want to watch Chargers Texans. That'll be close, but this is the game that I think is going to be the most fun to watch this weekend. Competitive, 2 good quarterbacks, 2 fun quarterbacks, personalities, fun play styles. Did you watch? I thought the best games this past weekend, week 18, were the NFC South, where you had Atlanta and Carolina duking it out.
Crazy.
And then, dude, Baker, the way he hung in that game week 18 to clinch the division and made play after play after play to pull that game out. It was so cool against the Saints. And I don't know who wins at Tampa against Washington, but it's going to be a really fun, really interesting game. Do you agree?
Yeah, fun is the exact word. And you described all the different elements of it. The players look like they're having fun. The quarterbacks have great personalities. They're having a good time. I'd argue that no team is having more fun than them on a consistent basis than Tampa or Washington, right?
Yeah.
Every time on the sidelines, it's all smiles.
Yeah.
They're all having a good time all the time. It'll be a good matchup. I do think that Baker Mayfield gets this one, though.
It's not safe, though. I really don't feel. I don't feel comfortable making a prediction at this one. Honestly, this is the one game I'm like, man, it really could go either way, because Jane Daniels can go off. I mean, he's just got that. He's got the ability to just have a crazy day and ruin your plans. And I don't know. I really respect Jane Daniels a lot. He's a great leader of that team. He can beat you with his legs, which is such a threat and such a problem for defenses.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Tampa's not safe at all in this one. This is a really tough matchup for them, personally.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I do think Tampa does win.
On Monday night, something I hate, by the way, in the NFL playoffs, you're going to make it more difficult. You now have one fewer day to prepare. Certainly, the Rams, Vikings, whoever wins is going to play Sunday the next week. But I just hate that we're doing this. Let's not mess up the integrity of the NFL playoffs by adding a Monday game and giving a team one fewer day to prepare when they're probably going to play the number 1 seed the following weekend. I hate it so much. But Vikings at Rams, I think Vikings win comfortably. Although again, it's also not safe. I think remember the Rams beat them pretty comfortably, handily earlier in the year.
True.
What do you make of Vikings at Rams?
Vikings win, and I think it is handily this time. Again, if there is a bad matchup for the Vikings that's other than Philly, I think it probably is the Rams. Again, just because of what Brian Flores wants to do on defense to muddy up the picture, when you've got a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford, it's just a little bit harder to do. And again, he's got great pass catchers on that team. This was already an overachieving season for the Rams, kind of given how the Niners fell apart, the Cardinals kind of fizzled. Like, this was, to me, an overachievement. I know that I thought that they were going to be a dark horse team this year, and then obviously it didn't look like they had the composition earlier because they were injured, and then they started to come back. I don't have faith in the Rams. As much as I talked about it earlier, I don't feel it with them right now. It feels like they scraped in. It feels like no one from the NFC West even deserves to be there in the first place. So it'll be an interesting matchup. But yeah, I do think that the Vikings get this, and it's a handy win.
I think the Vikings are a much more capable team. I also think psychologically, the way they lost Week 18 gives them something to prove.
Right.
Like, I know teams can slide. Like, the Steelers lost 4 games in a row to end the year and had this awful slide. So teams can. It's possible they drop a goose egg Week 18 against the Lions, and then they come out flat and do nothing in the wild card, and just like that, the Vikings' beautiful season is over. That's not out of the question. But I think they respond really strongly to what happened last weekend and just sort of like, no, that's not happening again. We're not letting another team have a party in their home stadium at our expense.
No way.
So that's the NFL wildcard weekend kind of roundup. Who is your favorite? Like, what 2 teams do you think are most likely to be in the Super Bowl this year?
I think it's Kansas City and then either Philly or Minnesota. And hear me out. Buffalo, I think, could lose this first week, but I do think that the AFC Championship is going to end up being Baltimore against Kansas City. That to me just makes the most sense. And this might sound strange, and this is kind of big brain wild thought here. Because they have Derrick Henry this year, I think we're going to see them try and play keep away, right? Let's keep Pat off the field. We're going to score. We're going to use up clock. And they're going to do what they've traditionally done in the playoffs and accidentally take away Lamar's ability by trying to keep Pat off the field.
Yeah.
And then they're going to accidentally keep the game close. And then the Chiefs are going to be able to pull. You get what I'm getting
I
at
think
here.
exactly
Like,
what happens.
They're going to try too hard to control the game instead of saying, Lamar, go ball out, go eat, because he is literally unstoppable if he wants to be.
If they let him loose.
If they just let him be him. But I do worry, again, because of the success that they've had with Derrick Henry this year. You're running into Chris Jones. Okay, it's a different front. They got George Karlaftis back. It's entirely different. And if you sit there and you try and control that game, it's going to be much more difficult for you to win. So that's kind of my big brain thought. I still think Kansas City, like I said, ends up in there. They're getting healthier. This offense has looked better with the return of Hollywood Brown, and now they kind of not have too many weapons, but they've got more weapons than they've had all year. They're going to start going to Travis Kelce more. He's going to start to get activated because now it's time for the playoffs. There's just, to me, a lot more to look forward to for this Kansas City team. Whereas I feel like we've seen what we've seen from the Ravens. We've seen what we've seen from the Bills. But the Chiefs are still a question mark. And I think that question mark is going to lead to, oh shit, these guys are way better than we thought offensively. I think this playoff offense from the Chiefs is going to look entirely different than it did the entire regular season.
The 3 best teams left are Philly, Detroit, and Kansas City, followed by then a conversation between Buffalo and Ravens. And depending on the day, I'll probably give it a different answer.
Yeah.
I just want to get it on record. I don't want this, right? I think it's a boring Super Bowl if this happens.
It's going to be Philly and the Chiefs again. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be Kansas City and Philly, and that's the reality of it. I think I so badly, dude. I want desperately to see Sam Darnold or Jerod Goff in that Super Bowl. I would be, if Sam Darnold could take the Vikings to a Super Bowl and just slam the door so hard in the Jets' face, I would be so happy. I want that so badly. I think Philly is just loaded, man. I think, and honestly, the game I really want, like the game that would make Zach the happiest. Actually, I have 2 wishes for this NFL playoffs. I really want Buffalo at Kansas City. I think that would be a great game. It'd be so fun. It would be just 2 quarterbacks that are great. And frankly, like you said about Baltimore, I think they're going to get in their own way. The Ravens are going to get in their own way against Kansas City. Buffalo wouldn't do that. Buffalo would be who's hot, what's working, let's figure it out. Like that's a way more. Joe Brady against Steve Spagnuolo is a really fun matchup, coordinator against defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So I want Bills at Kansas City in the NFC title game. That would be so fun. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want that really badly. It's my dream scenario. My dream NFC title game is the Lions against Philly. I think that's a great matchup.
That would be
two
so
great
good.
running backs. They run the ball well. Like, I just think that would be such a fun, exciting game. And if we don't get those two matchups, if we don't get Bills at Kansas City and Philly at Detroit, we all have missed out on could be incredible football games.
Get your popcorn, baby.
Now, that being said, all that to say, I think the most complete team left, healthiest, best up front, best, weapons. It's Philly. Philly is like actually for real should be the favorite. Their offensive line is dominant
for a head coach.
Their defensive line crushes. They've got two stud receivers. They've got a quarterback who he's in concussion protocol, but when he's healthy, can play. He's been to a Super Bowl before too. I think he's really poised and handles everything. They got the best running back in football. I think kind of like I look at Ohio State in college football, say they're loaded and the best team left. I feel the same way about Philadelphia. So I think we're going to get Philly and Kansas City, but I want to be very clear. I don't want that. That's boring. That sucks. That would be, I watch it, but I'm going to watch any Super Bowl you give me. I really want Detroit or Minnesota to be in that game.
It'd be a great game.
But for people that saw that same matchup a couple years ago, people would kind of groan and go, "Ugh, again." I know what happened, undoubtedly.
It's just I don't want to see Nick Sirianni in it. I'm sorry. I feel like he is just in the group project getting an A right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The Super Bowl is kind of like the MVP where people want something new and fresh and different. So sure. I think people want Detroit, Buffalo, like something like that. And by the way, that was a great game a couple weeks ago.
That would be, I mean, that was what, 40-something to 40-something? You give me that again for a Super Bowl? Ooh.
Yeah, dude, Detroit against Baltimore would be a great game. Unfortunately, I think the two best teams left are Kansas City and Philly, and that's just the reality of it.
Yep. Greatness can be boring.
On Thursday, we have two more games to talk about, actually. They're earlier than the NFL, but they matter less to me. Notre Dame plays Penn State in the Orange Bowl at Miami. I think these are two really similar teams that have a deficiency at quarterback a little bit. They're really good up front. I think it's actually a really interesting matchup. I'm actually going to dinner that night. It's not a priority to watch this game. Total transparency. I'm not that excited by this matchup. I'm way more excited for the other game in college football. What do you make of Penn State, Notre Dame? I think these are two really similar teams, though, that win the same way, which is in the trenches, up front, pushing people around, being kind of bullies. And I don't think Notre Dame is an underdog here. I think Notre Dame could absolutely beat Penn State. I will say, though, Drew Aller, in the bowl game they just played, they beat Boise State. Drew Aller, I know it's Boise State. As much shade as I've given him all year long, he made a couple throws that looked like Joe Flacco in his prime in Baltimore. I was like, wow, that's a great deep ball. He made a couple of them. So Drew Aller, I thought, earned some stripes in the Fiesta Bowl. But what do you make of Penn State, Notre Dame?
This might be an oversimplification of it. Who plays better, Riley Leonard or Drew Aller? And that's going to be the difference. Both of those teams have solid run games with great weapons. It's just going to be, can the quarterback deliver the football? Because you're going against two great defenses as well. What kind of impact does Abdul Carter have? Marcus Freeman has Notre Dame playing at a really high level. What quarterback is going to make one more play than the other?
I think Notre Dame wins then, personally.
Yeah, and they very well could. I've got no idea. This game to me is a coin flip.
The Georgia game, Riley Leonard, he ran for 80 yards, but he barely did anything throwing the football, and they won, and pretty comfortably against Georgia. And I don't think Georgia's backup quarterback played that badly, honestly. I think Notre Dame's defense is really good, and Notre Dame's defense could cause problems for Drew Aller. And the quarterback I trust more is Riley Leonard, even though I think I trust him to do very little, actually, and just they win with defense and running the football. And that blueprint's going to work for Notre Dame to get him to the national title.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
On Friday, this will be fun. I can't wait to watch this. I think Ohio State wins, but
Ohio State boat racism. I'm sorry.
Texas plays Ohio State.
Is so hot right now.
Game is in Dallas, in the Cotton Bowl. Does that affect you at all? Does that matter? Is the Cotton Bowl in Dallas or Austin? Cotton Bowl.
Do not know
the location. Cotton Bowl location. It is in. It's at AT&T Stadium. The actual Cotton Bowl Stadium is in Dallas, but the Cotton Bowl this year is being played.
Right. They probably moved it to a better venue.
Yeah, that's so funny. It makes sense. But
here's the deal. Ohio State is just better. And if this game was like a Texas home game and it wasn't indoors, 50-50 split, it'd be entirely different.
You don't think it's going to be mostly Texas people? I mean, I know Ohio State travels really well, but you don't think there's a chance it's a home game for Texas, basically, being in Dallas?
No, it's not going to be a home game for Texas. That's not how they sell the tickets. If you go to the national championship or any CFP game, the stadium's already cut diagonal. Half fans here, half fans there.
Yeah. I'd love to know about that, because how do they make that work that way? Do they give season ticket holders first chance? Is that the way that works?
I've got no idea.
I would think so. I think they give season ticket holders first opportunity at tickets, and then after that they open it up.
All I know is I was in Houston last year, and it was a 50-50 split, Michigan versus Washington. Yeah. Now, granted, two teams coming from their northern parts to come down there, but still.
I bet for real they give season ticket holders a shot
to make it 50-50.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Man, I think you're right that Ohio State, they're just a better team all around.
Ohio State is so good. I'm back to talking about them how I did to start the year. They are so good, and they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, I wonder if Quinn Ewers is playing his old team, how much that matters, because he played for Ryan Day. He played at Ohio State. I don't know. I think you're right that Ohio State, dog walks them, but it's interesting. Let's end the show today. Do you mind doing one question for Patreon? I got two, but one I really want to get to.
Yeah, I just got a fresh puff of the inhaler. I'm ready to go, baby.
You take the inhaler like you do drugs. Although, hey, you just had a really big sickness and trouble breathing. So to me, first of all, Colin writes in and says, do you think Joe Burrow and the Bengals are nearing a breaking point? Joe Burrow has been openly calling for teammates to get paid and is clearly very frustrated with their current record. As a Bengals fan, I'm not sure how long the chosen one puts up with Mike Brown's BS. A winning team would have fired Taylor by now, would have paid T. Higgins and Jamar Chase early to save money, and would have retained Jesse Bates. So the problem when Joe Burrow went to Cincinnati was ownership to me. It's just stingy and cheap and annoying and frustrating. I think he's running into that. He's starting to realize how tough it is to play for an owner.
Carson Palmered.
Yeah.
You're getting Carson Palmered.
An NFL is a small business. I know they're not from a financial standpoint, like they're massive, but they operate more like a small business would, as far as I know. The money's not the same, but the level of employees, the closeness you are to an owner. Like I talk to my owner every day at my job. And you have way more proximity to your ownership group and your CEO than you do at like a company like you work for, right? So, a big international company. So I think Joe Burrow is starting to realize the dysfunction of working for a small business with a bad owner. And I'm lucky I work for a small business with a great owner, but I've been at both types of company, and it's really tough and frustrating. And I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals are at a breaking point. He signed a massive contract. I don't think he's getting out anytime soon.
He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
This relationship could turn into a Carson Palmer type breakup someday.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a few years down the line. But again, if they let T. Higgins walk and they're not able to, replace him, they had to let, Tyler Boyd walk. They tried to replace him with Jermaine Burton, but Jermaine Burton just can't lock it in for whatever reason.
Learn the playbook, apparently.
And then you got the defense that's given up 30 some odd points a game, which started to play better towards the end of the year. And you had the leader in sacks on your team with Trey Hendrickson. So it's not like, things are totally horrible, but you can't start the season the way you did. You can't lose to the Patriots early on in the season like you did. I think there's a lot of internal reflecting that has to be done. And I don't know if firing Zach Taylor makes everything, miles better. But they just have to. I honestly don't know what the solution is for this team. I feel like firing Zach Taylor and bringing in a veteran head coach is the easiest thing to do, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily the right thing to do.
Yeah, Justin, this will be quick, but Justin writes in and says, "Let's go." Ending the year with a dub and Bryce Young with 5 total touchdowns, feeling good heading into the offseason. Do you watch or pay attention at all to the Carolina Falcons game? this past weekend? Because it was electric, man. It was so good.
I saw all the highlights. Unfortunately, I wasn't tuned in live.
Dude, the Panthers won 44-38. I think this is a good opportunity. So Bryce Young really got better and better as year went on. Bryce Young ends the year 25 for 34, 251 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He also ran for 2. I feel really good. Bryce Young is the future in Carolina. They're figuring it out. It's taking some time, but that's why you be patient with young quarterbacks, because I think you're patient, you love them, it'll work out, especially if they're talented and have the maturity that a guy like Bryce Young has, right? He's got the tools that you want. And then let's take the moment to give a shout out to Michael Penix Jr., who, dude, he's played really good the last couple of weeks. He looks like the guy they found. And I wouldn't change a single thing. You overpaid Kirk Cousins. He played a beginning of the year. Who cares how you got here? You got to a point where you got a young quarterback who you believe in and is your guy and your franchise quarterback. And that's all you want. I don't care how you do it. I would pay Kirk all the money again. I would waste games with him starting and throwing, 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions. I do it all over again the exact same way, because where we're at now, if you're a Falcons fan, is fantastic.
Yeah, you love to see from both guys, they're willing to let go of the football right now, which was a problem that Bryce Young had early, right? He wasn't throwing the football. He was taking bad sacks.
Pulling the trigger and holding on the ball too long.
Right. Yeah. And he had no middle ground. It was, I'm predetermined in throwing this and it's a pick 6, or I'm holding on to it and not throwing it. So it's great to see the growth from Bryce Young. As far as Michael Penix goes, everything that we saw at the University of Washington in terms of just that pinpoint accuracy, wow, some of the balls he completed were unbelievable. On the flip side, he also has some throws where you're like, yeesh, but that's going to come with the confidence. There's a few times he looked a little bit unsure where he wanted to go. Like, he knew he kind of wanted to go there, but it didn't look like he was standing and delivering. He was just kind of, I think that's it. But the bottom line is, some of the balls that he threw and the placement and the accuracy and the tightness of the spiral, man, that's a franchise quarterback.
It's interesting that Michael Penix Jr. started at quarterback, and suddenly, it feels like everyone's wide open. You're like, oh my gosh, whoa. Some of the throws over the middle are like, dang, dude, that is beautiful. It looks great. It's
London
awesome.
Arguably had his biggest game as a Falcon.
That's what I want to say, though. The one adjustment I need to see from Michael Penix Jr., he's got to get comfortable throwing 50-50 balls. Look, not every throw is going to be perfect in stride. When you got Kyle Pitts and Drake London, part of what makes them great is they're going to steal the ball from a 5'8" corner. Like, they are guys who go get the football. And there are a couple times where he's trying to throw a perfect ball in stride on a fade, and it's like, dude, put it up in the air. Like, I want Kyle Pitts planting and rebounding that football, not trying to catch it perfectly in stride.
Right.
And I just think he's never done that before. He's never had a receiver. He's never had receivers like these guys before. That's just never been his game. That's an adjustment I'd like to see from him. But I'm so confident Michael Penix Jr.'s got it, man. He looks great. And I wouldn't change a thing in Atlanta right now. It's awesome.
Wouldn't change a thing. Also, very smart of Raheem Morrison, the general manager right now, that caught so much flack for drafting Michael Penix Jr. Everyone was like, what are they doing? How could you make that? And now they're sitting back like,
I remember making fun of them, but I think I also remember, I hope I said, I don't remember what you and I said at the time, but I think I was like, look, it's kind of weird, but like, it makes sense because you got to plan for your future the same way you did with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I'm very certain I loved the Jordan Love draft pick at the time. And I would hope that my reaction was in line with that. Saying like, hey, it's freaking weird. And I feel bad for Kirk. I feel kind of bad for Michael Penix Jr. too. That's a weird position they're in, but I see it. I understand it.
Right.
You can understand it and not love it, but now I love it too.
Yeah, now we love it.
I want to go back to a question we read earlier. It's a different Justin wrote this in. It's got like a Japanese writing. Justin, and there's Japanese writing I can't pronounce, but he says, I may be late with this one. If you were Santa, what gifts would you give to NFL teams? Specific players, owners, or the commissioner? Your choice. We read it earlier. I don't know if the answer's changed or not by the end of the show, but anything you would, any like Christmas gifts you would give out to anybody in the NFL?
I'd get Trevor Lawrence an excellent play caller. I would get Patrick Mahomes a bona fide wide receiver 1, like the big body, like a Jamar Chase type guy. Obviously, he's a 1 of 1, but I'd get him like that kind of wide receiver.
Let's go back and forth with this because I think we could go on this a while. I would give Joe Burrow a new owner.
Yeah, I'd give him a new owner. I'd get new ownership in Chicago as well. Why not? While we're talking about ownership, probably new ownership with the Jets.
I would give the Raiders the second overall pick. I'd trade up for them. That's what I would for the Raiders.
And then to follow that up, I'd give the Raiders Tyreek Hill to accompany that second round pick.
Oh, dude. Tyreek, Cedar Sanders.
That'd be a lot of personality.
Don't give him the captain's badge.
I'm not sure who gets it in Vegas. I'm not sure anyone's even worthy of it in Vegas other than Jacoby Myers.
I would give Caleb Williams Joe Brady as head coach.
Yeah, I would love that one. Let's see. Who else? Who needs a little something sweet? I would give.
I got another one.
I'd give the Rams a really good corner. I'm not sure who that is, but I'd give the Rams a really good corner.
I would give the Browns a voided contract.
That would be amazing.
They need out of that Deshaun Watson contract, man. It's so bad. It's poof. If I had a genie, I'd poof and wish it gone.
I'd get the Seahawks a better offensive coordinator.
I would give Trevor Lawrence Ben Johnson. That's what I would get for Trevor Lawrence.
Merry Christmas. Who else needs something? Who are we forgetting about?
I got another one. I see it right now.
Let's hear it.
I would give the 49ers a moderate contract for Brock Purdy.
Oh, my goodness. I would give the 49ers Marcus Mariota. Somebody please get Marcus Mariota. Oh, I forgot about my whole segment I wanted to do. The Duck segment. You've got Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. You've got Troy Franklin and Bucky Irving out there. You've got Marcus Mariota. You've got Javon Holland. Like there's some Ducks out there balling. But seriously, Marcus Mariota, if you're looking for a guy to run your offense, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, and this is kind of what he wanted to do with Trey Lance, is kind of introduce a little bit more running from the quarterback. Mariota seems like he might be that kind of guy. But also Mariota is obviously more of like a college offense kind of guy. So I don't know.
Sometimes your people that love you look out for you and give you something you may not want, but you need.
Yeah.
I would give Aaron Rodgers Rex Ryan. I think it would be great for him. It'd be great for the Jets organization to be fun to watch.
That's just giving him a babysitter is all that is.
I think somebody to keep him in check and tell him he doesn't want to hear and challenge him that's what he needs, man. I think I think Rex trying to get himself fired by running his mouth too much. The owner wouldn't like it, but it'd be perfect. It really would.
I would give Will Levis better decision making.
More Mayo.
More? Nah, get out of here.
Find a better condiment.
We got to end the episode on that. I don't want to talk about Mayo.
I got one final one. I would give you a gift, Nathan.
It better not be Mayo.
No, it'd be a much better performance from your favorite team in a key moments.
All right.
I'm sorry, Sam didn't come for you, Nathan. He's gonna leave. Guys, I love you. It's been fun. Look at it, the Oregon water bottle. He doesn't even hear what I'm saying. He's upset. He's sad. Guys, I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great weekend. One final thought, Nathan. What would you want to leave people with? Like, what's the thing they should do this weekend? Anything you should look out for?
Man, what should you look out for this weekend? Look out to check in on those who are setting their goals for the new year. If you check in on other people, it will encourage you to make sure that yours is correct. Last thing you want to do is go after somebody trying to support them and not be supporting yourself. So go out there and make sure that somebody is, pursuing their goals, and make sure that you're triple checking yours. Get that workout in on the weekend. Don't slouch it because there's a lot of football. Find a way to get it done.
I gotta say, while we're on this thing, I had a moment, a problem in my life. I had to go to therapy and kind of recenter everything a while ago. I've gone to the gym 5 days a week ever since then. So I started early, and I'm glad to not be part of like the New Year's rush to go to the gym. I'm like, no, I was already doing this. I already been here for like a while now, and I'm comfortable. I got a rhythm. I go at 5 a.m. every morning. Works out great. And I'm really glad to not be. It cheapens it at the new year. Like if you have a goal, just start. Don't wait till the year changes to start your goal. Like you should have done it in November. I'll end with this, man. I think the best game of the weekend, like the very best football game you're going to watch all weekend, And I thought this was going to be Lions Vikings, but I was wrong. So I could be wrong again. But I think the most fun, best game of the weekend is Washington at Tampa. That's the one game that you shouldn't miss if you're going to watch any football game this weekend. I can't hear you. I don't know why. I think your mic got pulled. It's not even picking you up. On that note, guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Have a great day. And bam, we are done.